praises her beauty and asks her to dance. She is the empire's only princess, Kaina Hill. Her brother, Emperor Rezef Hill, congratulates her coming of age. Duke Raffaello Kidre appears cold, handsome, and mysterious. Rezef says beauty fades, and power matters more. A lady screams, accusing another woman of angering the Duke. Kaina orders Rezef to put the girl into eternal sleep. Rezef refuses and threatens Kaina instead. Shocked, she reminds him she made him emperor. Rezef calls her a used and broken doll. In the novel, Kaina was beautiful, foolish, and cruel. Betrayed, poisoned, sold, and sent to eternal sleep. Every villain in the novel met the same end. The man reminds her he gave her power. She realizes their fates mirror the novel. Living as someone's doll disgusts her. A man stabs her, blaming her for his ruin. She remembers he was ruined by his own scandal. She thinks this death isn't the worst ending. Suddenly, rumors spread. The princess has awakened. She wonders how she's alive at all. Rezef checks on her, destined to kill her later. She realizes she is now Princess Kaina Hill. Her fascination with Kaina came from a past life. A maid notes poison damage but prepares her clothes. She remembers drinking wine, Kaina's memories. She recalls coughing blood at the banquet. The maid suggests a doctor. She refuses. The maid senses her mistress has changed. Kaina laughs at preening even after poisoning. She remembers being called the Empire's flower. She thanks fate for rebirth before it's too late. She knows Rezef will soon become emperor. She decides marriage is her escape. First, she must deceive Rezef. Rezef requests to see her. Rezef Hill, the future tyrant emperor. Beneath kindness lies cruelty. A loveless child became a monster. Rezef asks about her health. She sees his hypocrisy clearly. She apologizes for worrying him. He notices her strange calm. He blames it on illness. To him, Kaina is still a useless doll. He promises to punish the poisoner. She knows she's just a tool. Kaina asks to stop the investigation. She knows Rezef is responsible. He promises protection, misunderstanding her. He planned to frame Killian's son. Rezef poisoned Kaina to weaken Kidre. The poison is untraceable. He suspects her feelings for Raffaello. She redirects suspicion to Hamel's black market ties. Exposing Hamel would damage Rezef. She warns he'll suffer most. She suggests using Kidre as support. Rezef feels like an adult, scolding a child. She proposes Olivia Grace as her attendant. He confirms Olivia's noble backing. He's intrigued by Kaina's change. Olivia is the novel's heroine. Rezef agrees cautiously. He questions who Kaina has become. She kneels, calling him her king. He suspects poison-induced madness. She questions her worth to him. She suggests marrying her off safely. She refuses Killian's fate. She asks for freedom. He asks if she'll abandon luxury. She asks to choose her husband. Rezef demands compensation. She promises to make him emperor. She warns of shared power. She asks him to think. She collapses from fever. Rezef resumes his schemes. He orders surveillance on Kaina and Olivia. His aide obeys, shocked. Rezef realizes Kaina played him. He suspects a hidden advisor. Other heirs still exist. Henrik's bloodline lacks recognition. Their illness made them irrelevant. Until Yester's adopted son appeared. He forced imperial recognition. Rezef planned to use Kaina. Her eyes now hold cold resolve. His doll now worries him. At the ball, a man declares his love. The poisoner is arrested for execution. Kaina refuses to watch. Half a month passes quietly. Nobles whisper about Rezef's delay. Succession cannot be rushed. Henrik loses influence. Kaina's beauty rumors spread. She becomes a rose with poisonous thorns. The woman says that the aristocrats are eagerly awaiting Her Highness's coming-of-age ceremony, and that she will soon be able to meet her fiancé, after which she asks if she likes Sir Kidri. The princess replies that who knows, and reflects on the fact that there are plenty of spies around and these words will surely reach Rezef. She understands that her father, the emperor, is unlikely to be pleased with such a choice, so the decision shouldn't be difficult. The lady notes that if Sir Kidri becomes the husband of the emperor's daughter, this could create serious problems in the power structure. Hearing this, the woman doubts whether the princess can say such a thing, but understands that the tense relations between the emperor and the Duchy of Kidre have long been no secret. The lady thinks that, in this situation, Her Highness's love for Raffaello became a real headache for the emperor. The woman says that His Majesty nevertheless considered the matter important, and therefore listened. At that moment, the protagonist realizes he wasn't caring about her, but merely wanted to hurt the Kydries. The lady admits that she did not know her father's true intentions, and has been stubborn and vain up until now, so now she is ashamed and wants to correct everything she did as a princess. Kaina's coming-of-age ball is about to open. Preparations have been long, and all the dresses are already fully prepared. The girls admiringly tell the lady that she is incredibly beautiful, like a doll, and that the embroidery of the roses is perfect, because in the ballroom, as always, there is no one more beautiful than Her Highness. Sincere and direct compliments have always been what Kaina loved most, But now the woman notices that the princess does not respond to them in any way. The lady understands that after the attempted poisoning, the mistress has changed a lot, and although those around her like her calmness, she has certainly not become any simpler. The main character looks at the maid Bella and notices that she is observant, smart, and ambitious, and among all the maids, she is the one who is worth something. All the palace maids obey Rezef and dream of catching his eye, so they are ready to turn their backs on the princess at any moment for their own benefit. The young lady decides to give Bella a chance and wants her to think carefully about whether such a mistress is right for her. Kaena reflects that in order to live without outside pressure, she needs to get as many people, power, and property on her side as possible. The girl understands that she has lived her entire life as if in a cage, having nothing of her own and remaining a puppet, never realizing who actually held the power. The princess admits that she has lived in error for a long time, but now knows too much to repeat the same mistake again. The little girl decides to live the way she wants and orders everyone to get ready because she has an audience with His Majesty the Emperor. His Majesty tells his daughter in surprise that she came to him first, considering this unusual. The young lady says that a lot of unpleasant things have happened because of her lately, and sincerely apologizes for the trouble she has caused her father. She adds that Rezef has thoroughly investigated the poisoning incident, asking not to worry, and is thinking about how to prevent suspicions from being raised against him. The girl understands that with such a relationship they were not close, and the Emperor at this time thinks that Kaena was poisoned by Rezef, and says that he will help catch the real assassin. Kaena assures that what happened is nothing, and it is better to leave everything as is, saying that she was a stupid daughter and wants to improve, and suggests that she considers her brother still a child. The Emperor realizes that the rumors about her changes are true, praises her behavior, and says that he wants to reward his daughter. Her father reminds her that there is very little time left until her coming-of-age ceremony, and it is time for her to think about her future husband. The girl catches herself thinking about Raffaello, but understands that he cannot be her choice because she needs the power of the duchy, not feelings. Sena asks if he has a son of noble birth in mind. The Emperor reminds her of her previous obsession with Raffaello and asks if she is ready to marry another. The little girl replies that she is a princess and cannot follow only her feelings because her duty is to obey his will. Hearing this, the man thinks that she has suddenly become mature and wise and says that he will carefully consider the appropriate options. The main character thanks His Majesty, takes her leave, and wishes her father good health. The Emperor reflects on the fact that his daughter has truly changed, and he did not expect that Kaena herself would raise the issue of marriage and cover for her brother. Raffaello Kaidri is a black-haired youth with scarlet eyes, the symbol of the Kaidri Duchy, whose tenacity and courage have captured the hearts of noble women, including Kaena. Walking down the hallway, the protagonist encounters him. The man bows his head and introduces himself as Raffaello, offering his services. The girl looks at him and thinks that this is the same man that everyone adored, including her former self. The lady suggests taking a walk and says that they haven't seen each other for a long time, and he wonders why she no longer calls him by his usual name. The lady asks if he has come to see His Highness. Raffaello replies that he has, but was told to come later, noting that the princess had just left the Emperor's office. The girl understands that the Emperor has avoided the meeting and suggests speaking more quietly since they are near his chambers. Raffaello replies that he will not disturb the Emperor's rest and will come another time. Kaena says she knows the reason for his visit and, doubting whether she can help, offers to have tea with her. The Duke thinks she understands his desire to avoid marital pressure, and the girl adds that they just received some good tea. The man doesn't understand how she's going to help and feels that she's no longer the princess in front of him, but rather a cold-blooded negotiator. Raffaello decides that it is worth listening to her and accepts the invitation with interest. The maids are surprised by his visit and are going to bring a luxurious dress and shoes. The lady stops them and tells them to bring something simple and comfortable. Seeing the princess, the Duke thinks that before she always dressed up to meet him, but now she looks too simple. Kaena apologizes for the wait, and he notices that without the coquetry and clothes, she seems even more beautiful and confident. The princess suggests talking about his possible marriage. Raffaello wonders how she heard about the marriage proposals, and she says that this is expected for the heir of such an influential family. The baby assumes that he is against the wedding, hiding the knowledge of his true reason. Kaena explains that to gain the approval of his vassals, a future duke must either marry or prove his outstanding skills. The lady asks, since he has not come for military powers, whether he wishes to prove his worth in another way. At this time, Raffaello's parents are in the process of divorcing due to a long-standing affair, which has hit the family hard. His mother is worried that her son will follow in his father's footsteps, and this is where, according to the heroine, the problems begin. There are rumors that Raffaello is not interested in women, and the vassals fear the lack of an heir. In 23 years, he has never touched a woman's hand, which seems strange to those around him, although the real reason is severe mysophobia. Raffaello lacks affection and avoids touch due to mental illness, and his mother, unaware of this, rushes to marry him off. The young duke wants to gain a title by proving his skills and avoiding an unwanted marriage. Raffaello admits that he is surprised by her knowledge and says that she is right, but he was never able to meet with the Emperor. The lady assures him that he doesn't need this, because she will help solve the problem, which greatly surprises him. The princess asks the maids if everything is ready and says that the tea is strong, so she will add milk and sugar to it. The girl explains that this is a special tea that helps satisfy hunger when you are very busy. She says it tastes good and invites him to try it. The Duke thinks that the princess always made gifts according to her own taste, but tea with milk is new to him, and he hopes that he will be able to drink it. Kaina asks him how the drink is. He replies that it's delicious, and she's pleased that she got it right. Raffaello admits that he liked it so much that he would like more, if it wouldn't be rude. The lady smiles and promises to give him the recipe before leaving. The man feels an unusual warmth and wonders if he has ever felt so good. Kaina suggests that, since he has satisfied his hunger a little, they discuss possible marriage candidates. Returning home, Raffaello hears his mother reproach him for returning late. He asks why she is not in the Western lands and what brings her to the capital. The woman notices his cold tone and asks if he would like to offer his mother some tea. The Duke orders tea and snacks to be served, and also orders strong tea with milk and sugar to be brought. The mother is surprised by this choice, and he replies that he seems to like it. The lady states that his house is in disarray due to the absence of his wife and wonders what people will say. The son asks if this is the only reason she came, and hears that she can no longer tolerate his indecisiveness. Mother begins to list the suitable brides, first naming Lady Dolores of County Evian. She immediately notes that she is afraid of blood, and that the county is on the verge of bankruptcy, which means the alliance is unprofitable. Next up is Lady Rita of Viscounty Brooklyn, fit for a warrior line, but with hereditary madness. Kaina notes that now they are only whispering about it, but soon everyone will know. The princess names Olivia of Viscounty Grace as her final candidate, a smart and sensible girl supported by his family. Raffaello asks if she is the only one recommending him, and the heroine agrees, considering them the ideal couple. Hearing this, the man thinks that the princess is looking for benefits in such a union. Kaina adds that she would like him to remember who facilitated their meeting. Raffaello is shocked by what is happening, and feels as if he is under someone else's influence. He understands that his mother is speaking rationally, but thoughts of marriage and intimacy seem impossible to him. The young Duke reminds her that he does not intend to marry, but his mother insists, saying that the family needs a marriage. He doesn't understand why the princess told him all this and decides that he must meet her again. The lady is delighted with the new treats and rare tea, believing that she can now afford such pleasures. Madam, smiling, asks what kind of poison has changed Her Highness so much. The maid says that now the princess hardly gets angry and generously forgives mistakes, which makes the service convenient. The maid agrees and believes that it is thanks to the poison that Kaina has become more kind-hearted. Bella reprimands Lady Benjamin for her chatter and reminds her of her duties. Benjamin replies that even the princess is not outraged, and sarcastically says that Bella is simply used to groveling. She states that they serve Rezef, not Kaina, and therefore they have nothing to fear. The maid notices that Bella has also changed, because the princess is kind to her, but assures her that the prince will protect their family. The other maid agrees, believing that they were hired to control Kaina, and all they need to do is please His Highness. Bella is amazed at their stupidity, and realizes that she almost got into trouble by choosing to stay away from them. The maid believes that even a changed princess does not forgive mistakes. All the maids dream of becoming Rezef's wife, because he is the only prince of the empire with a soft smile and a honeyed voice. But it is a dangerous delusion to think that his cold and ruthless nature can be melted by love. The maid considers all this nonsense and is convinced that one must know one's place. She simply wants to be valuable to someone, and she doesn't care who exactly acknowledges her, so Bella is not one to silently watch Lydia and the other maids. Kaina says that Bella is a smart girl because her wise decision to side with the strongest ultimately saved her. The maid reports to Her Highness that Lydia has stated that her room should not be cleaned. The lady thanks her, hands her a bag of money, and says that this is payment for her courage and determination. The princess recalls that in her first life, the impudent, arrogant, and willful Lydia also behaved foolishly and reported her every move to Rezef. This did not save her, for Rezef, whose love she sought, cast her into eternal sleep. The protagonist decides to prevent this outcome and believes she needs to escape this hell as quickly as possible. She thinks Lydia is foolish because she can still leave of her own free will without becoming a prisoner of this place like she is. The original story begins with rumors of Olivia and Raffaello's wedding. A husband is already being sought for Raffaello, and their meeting is only a matter of time. The princess understands that, first of all, she needs to get closer to Olivia, who comes from a house of loyal vassals of the Duchy of Kidre. If Rezef, who is in a tense relationship with the Kydres, orders Olivia to move into the palace, she will be completely separated from her home. She understands that she cannot allow anything to interfere with the blossoming of her love with Raffaello. Kaina believes that Olivia should move into the palace only by order of the emperor, not Rezef. The Kidre family cannot go against the emperor's will anyway. The mistress tells Annie that she has a task for her, and the maid assures her that she will do everything to make the mistress happy. The princess orders the letter to be taken to Margaret's salon on Lawrence Street and delivered to the right person. The maid hurriedly apologizes and explains that the matter is urgent. She says that His Highness Rezef is furious, destroying everything, and the palace is in turmoil. The lady is surprised by what she hears and says that she will immediately go to the prince's palace. The prince shouts in rage that this mongrel does not know his place and calls everyone around him stupid idiots who betrayed him for the sake of a couple of mines. The man says that he was born from a mistress and wonders if that is why he and Henry are almost indistinguishable. Upon hearing this, His Majesty asks whether he is comparing Henry's adopted son with the emperor's illegitimate son, and then indignantly declares that this is impudent. Rezef shouts that he is a true member of the imperial family, not a pathetic Henry, and promises to deal with everyone when he becomes emperor. At this moment, there is a knock on the door, and the maid asks to come later. The princess asks why everyone just watched as the prince's chambers were reduced to rubble, and what would have happened if he had been seriously injured. Hearing this, the butler wonders since when the princess became so cold-blooded. The young gentleman asks his sister not to come near, but she replies that otherwise he will remain alone, and calls him her dear brother. The girl notices that he is still injured and asks in bewilderment if it hurts, and how he could do such a thing with such a beautiful face. The gentleman grumbles that his sister always treats him like a child, picks her up, and asks if he looked stupid in his fit. Kaina smiles, asks if he feels any calmer now, and gently strokes his face. Rezef asks if she is hurt, and the girl replies that she is fine, and his wounds worry her much more. The princess says that even such a scratch is unacceptable, because he is the face of the empire, and let him be angry as much as he wants, but do not put himself in danger. The gentleman apologizes and says that he learned something unpleasant and could not restrain himself. The main character understands that Henrik has lured away his people again, and Rezef hates any comparison with him because of blood ties. The young lady realizes that no matter how cruel he is still a boy, not even one who has reached adulthood. Rezef still needs support and care, but the emperor, his only parent, hates him, and so she is all he has. The main character believes that this child still has a chance to change if he is truly cared for, and asks him to trust her. Kaina says that many impatient people will gather at his coming-of-age ceremony, and reports that the emperor allowed her to choose her own groom, so rumors will spread quickly. She assumes that many will decide that it is enough to get hold of a stupid princess, and the throne will be in their hands. The lady adds that she will feel unwell that day, and the unsuspecting Rezef will receive the irritated guests and make useful contacts with them. The main character understands that this way she can regain the support taken away by Henry, and considers this an excellent chance, especially for Kaina. Rezef asks if she is really going to marry someone else, and what will happen to Raffaello then, since she seemed to love him. Kaina replies that she once desired him unconditionally, but feelings change over time, and love is no exception. The lady reports that Sir Kidri accepted the candidates, portraits, and rumors spread like wildfire. The woman asks if Her Highness mentioned this, since everyone knew how much she liked Sir Kidri, and concludes that her feelings for Raffaello have faded. Miss, hearing this, asks with interest whether she has a chance. The girl says she heard about Lady Olivia's accepted portrait and asks if she feels uncomfortable here. Olivia replies that she feels good here and is grateful for the invitation, although she thinks to herself that her family is too modest for such receptions. The girl understands that as soon as the rumor began to spread about the acceptance of her portrait by the House of Kidri, invitations began pouring in from all sides. Madame says that luck has clearly smiled on Lady Olivia and admits how happy she is for her. The woman adds that the princess had previously tormented her, and a successful marriage would be excellent revenge, since she needs to feed her younger children and marry profitably. Olivia smiles and says she never thought about it, and the girl is disappointed, expecting a bigger scandal. The young lady reflects that no one has yet mentioned inviting her to the princess's palace as a maid, and realizes that the timing is too opportune to be a coincidence. Immediately after Rezef's request for service in the palace, she received a marriage proposal from the Duchy of Kidre. The girl considers this astonishingly timely, as if the princess had anticipated the rumors and made a move immediately. Olivia understands that her family is subordinate to the Kidre, and if she follows Rezef's orders, the position of the duchy could be shaken by one wrong step. The lady doesn't understand what the catch is, because the position of the princess's maid is honorable and rare, and she doubts that she was offered simply out of kindness. Bella approaches Lady Olivia and gives her a message from her mistress. The girl notices that the letter contains only wax without a seal, and understands that the sender wished to remain anonymous. Olivia asks if there is any reason to read a letter from an anonymous sender. Bella says that the lady foresaw this and ordered these words to be passed on in case of doubt. The main character thinks that the insightful Olivia has accumulated many questions and is confident that the letter will help her make the right decision. Olivia guesses that the author of the letter is a person of high status and understands that it is Princess Kaguya. The letter said that the lady understood her confusion and advised her to keep a low profile and make sure that she would be temporarily forgotten for the good of her family. The princess writes that she will soon send another request and looks forward to their meeting. After reading this, the young lady wonders if this is some kind of imperial order, and she wonders about the princess's plans. The maid informs Her Highness that Sir Raffaello has requested an audience again. Sina thinks this is the 5th time and cites illness. The princess asks who Rezef is meeting with now, and the maid replies that he is receiving Count Dominan. The main character knows that the Count owns sapphire mines and understands that Rezef will take advantage of the influx of candidates to lure them away. The maid asks where Her Highness is heading, and Kaina replies that she is going to prepare some snacks for her brother. The maid asks what exactly to cook, but the mistress says that she will do everything herself. The girl goes into the kitchen and bakes a pie, remembering how in a past life she cooked for many years herself. The maid wonders why there are 2 pies, and Kina explains that one is for the servants, as a token of gratitude for their work. The chef enthusiastically says that he would be happy to try it, and considers this event almost a family affair. The princess says that the second pie should be taken to Rezef, thinking about how many maids would want to please him. She realizes that Bella will not prove her loyalty in this way, and decides to send someone else. Lydia happily grabs the pie, but the cook shouts that it is still hot. The maid falls down and in panic asks for forgiveness, saying that she has committed a mortal sin. Bella, horrified, declares that Lydia has gone crazy, because it was because of her that the princess was burned, and the punishment for this is too lenient. The main character says that she was careless and scared everyone, adding that she should have warned that the pie was hot. The maid reports that the help was provided in time and the burn is minor. It is enough to apply the ointment for a few days, and the mistress thanks her. Kaina says that everything turned out okay, and asks Lydia if she was very scared, and she again apologizes. The princess assures that everything is fine, and everyone can make mistakes, although she notes to herself that they are the same age. The lady lets everyone rest and asks to see Lydia out, as she is in shock. Bella doesn't understand such gentleness, and thinks that the maid should have been scolded thoroughly. Kaina asks if Bella has forgotten that her generosity is not out of kindness, and reminds her that she has served her for a long time. Bella wonders how the mistress knows this, but she takes it as another test, and the princess orders the pie to be taken to His Highness. Bella tells the prince that the pie was baked by the princess herself, and Rezef is surprised by its pleasant appearance and smell. He asks if this is true, and the maid confirms it. The assistant advises not to eat so carelessly, thinking that there might be something wrong with the pie. The prince says the pie is delicious and invigorating, and notices an unusual flavor that he likes. Bella explains that it's cinnamon, and Rezef is delighted to have discovered a new favorite flavor. The young gentleman is surprised that he did not know about her culinary talent and feels his fatigue disappear. Rezef says that he is almost finished with his business and would like to eat with her, asking what she is doing. The maid honestly replies that a small incident occurred with the princess in the kitchen. Hearing this, the prince goes to his sister, and the ladies watch him with curiosity. The miss greets him, and he remarks on the luxury of the room, the expensive tea, and the scent of her perfume. The prince believes that the maids live too freely, because he never allowed them such luxury. Rezef says people make mistakes, but he can't stand it when boundaries are crossed. He recalls the words that he has no family, and that he can only gain freedom as a prince. The young man understands that from birth he was forced to survive, and remember that an illegitimate child can be gotten rid of at any moment. The emperor instilled in him that he had to prove his worth or be erased, raising him with the idea that everyone should know their place. The maid screams in horror that she has committed a mortal sin and begs for forgiveness. The prince says he has never heard of a member of the imperial family being burned by a maid, and asks if such a thing has happened before. The girl turns to His Highness again, asks for forgiveness, and says that the princess herself assured her that everything is fine. The gentleman claims that sister was looking after them, and they, forgetting their place, caused God knows what. He asks if she understands her guilt, if he decides to punish her and deprive her of her impudent hands. Hearing no answer, the prince asks which hand to start with. At this point, the assistant realizes he'll have to witness more bloodshed, as in this state, no one can stop Rezef. At that moment, Her Majesty enters the room. She turns to her brother and asks him to stop, touches his face, and says she's glad he's so kind. She admits that if she'd known how angry he'd be, she would have punished Lydia herself beforehand. Rezef declares that wounding a member of the imperial family is an unforgivable crime. He asks how the maid dared to disregard the authority of their family, and asks her to simply say the word, after which he will personally put her into eternal sleep. The lady assures him it was a simple accident. She asks him not to worry too much, as the wound is minor and will heal in just a few days. Kaina sighs with relief and asks if he's calmed down. Then she suggests they share a cup of tea. The lady says his concern frightens her. Hearing this, the young man asks in surprise if he really did frighten her. She replies that he did not. The protagonist doesn't understand why these moments suddenly overlap. A walk through the palace, hand in hand, and she says she's not afraid of him at all. At the same moment, she thinks about how their childhood has long since faded, even from memory. Kaina knows she doesn't feel much attachment to her family. In her first life, she seemed non-existent to the emperor, and Rezef merely used her and then discarded her. The girl understands that he is still her younger brother, and that his character wasn't terrible to begin with. She suspects it's due to pressure and neglect from the emperor, as he was never praised and seemed to have been written off. The princess thinks he was just a boy who couldn't grow up any different in such an environment, with no one to lean on. She realizes how lonely he must have been when people pointed fingers at him, calling him an illegitimate child. The protagonist suggests that if she loves and cares for him, he will change over time. She then asks him if he liked the pie. The prince replied that, of course, he liked it. He admitted that he was surprised by how delicious it was, and at one point even thought it had been prepared by the court chef. The sister says she'll bake him another one, without any flattery. She's pleased to hear compliments, and she orders the maid to bring the remaining pie so they can enjoy it together in the garden. The young lady reflects on how it's also her responsibility to surround Rezef with love and care. She praises him and gently strokes his hair. At this moment, the young gentleman remembers that he always put the interests of the family first and took on any dirty work, but no one had ever praised him like that. Rezef recalls that even when he humiliated the hated Henry or achieved a goal for which he exhausted himself without rest, he never once felt satisfaction. The prince reflects on how he didn't expect to feel so comfortable around Kiana, who had previously been a stranger to him. He admits that in her presence he can finally catch his breath. The guy thinks that she is no longer a doll, but caring and beautiful, his only quiet haven in the entire imperial palace. The lady smiles and notices that each time he says more and more pleasant things. The prince's aide is amazed at how easily the princess controls his highness. Even the emperor has given in, and Rezef has submitted to her as if she were a beast tamer. The man reflects that Rezef, despite being a bastard, is easily influenced and easier to control than Henrik. He believes he must now be especially careful with the princess. The emperor asks his daughter about her wound. She replies that, thanks to his prayers, she's much better now, and there's not even a scar left, adding that Reza visits her often. Father says they could easily deal with the wretched Benjamin family. Lady believes one must be lenient toward those beneath her, and thinks that if she were to punish them, father would accuse her of cruelty. The emperor notes that the maids may seem like mere service personnel to her, but only by taming such people can she truly rise above them. Hearing this, the princess asks how Lord Chamberlain Rudin is. The butler replies that this is too generous a compliment. The king smiles and says Rudin is the most trusted vassal he's ever had. The girl replies that she'll remember the advice and was planning to hire new maids anyway. The main character thinks that soon all the servants will be replaced, but this must be kept secret, otherwise the emperor will try to restrict her. Kayana says she wants to hire someone with a good understanding of the capital's fashion. She plans to get rid of her outdated clothes and buy jewelry, as she hasn't left the palace in a long time and is out of fashion. The princess understands that for now it is better to stick to the image of a naive girl with a bright smile, delighting her father with sweet deeds. The butler reminds her that her coming-of-age ceremony is coming soon, and her wedding is also just around the corner. She doesn't have a chaperone, and this is causing concern. Before the wedding, noble women are accompanied by a chaperone, but Rezef has long since expelled Kayana's nanny, Clarence Elivan, so the position remains vacant. The emperor reflects on the fact that no one has been ready for Kayana's wedding for a long time. He admits his indifference and says that a chaperone must be found before the ceremony. Kayana replies that it is unlikely that anyone would agree to take her under their wing, as there are many rumors about the troubles that follow hiring a stranger for this role. His Majesty recalls that he once supported the exile of Clarence, the former empress's childhood friend. Now, with time running short, it seems a trifle to him. He says he can't replace all the maids, but he's quite capable of bringing back one nanny. He announces that he will lift Clarence Elivan's banishment. Hearing this, the protagonist thinks that Mrs. Elivan was the only person who truly cared for her as a child, almost like a mother. She wonders if she'll ever see her nanny again. The daughter thanks His Majesty and says that Mrs. Elivan will also be incredibly happy. The princess thought it would be impolite to refuse him a private conversation for the 5th time. She hadn't expected him to come to her directly. Raffaello greets Her Highness. The lady replies that she is glad to see him and asks if he has come to see his father. The gentleman objects and says he came to see her. The girl thinks about how he still speaks ambiguously and recalls how she often misunderstood him before. The man says it's nothing and asks her to accept his gift in return. The girl sees a rare leaf tea, available only through auction and in very small quantities. The princess remarks that since he's also prepared a gift, her advice has helped him. She says the weather is fine and suggests they take a stroll in the garden. Raffaello agrees and asks to take her hand. The girl offers to follow her, saying he doesn't have to be like that, and he thinks his gesture was unpleasant to her. Kayana says she didn't expect him to agree to be alone with her. She asks what if she started bothering him again like she used to. The man replies that he doubts she would do that. She is surprised that he believed her so easily and notes that he seems pleased with the information he received. The princess says the houses she mentioned have already fallen, and rumors of the marriage will soon die down. Only the Grace family remains. Raffaello notes that Lady Olivia Grace has a pleasant appearance and a bright mind. The protagonist says she's recommending her for a reason, but Olivia will be appointed as a maid in her palace. The lady explains that his family will then cease their patronage of House Grace, and the engagement will become suspect. The rumors about the wedding that his mother had been spreading will backfire on her. The princess believes that after this, even the Duchess will not dare to raise the topic of marriage again, and congratulates him on being freed from the obligation to marry. The man wonders if she foresaw all this in advance. He wants to ask what she has in mind, since she's so willing to help him and introduce him to Lady Olivia. Raffaello admits he thought she hated him. She agrees and says that's true, but now hatred, envy, and even love seem meaningless to her. The young man believes her long-standing addiction has disappeared, and her heart is empty. The girl says she wants to take this opportunity to sincerely apologize. Kaina apologizes for her past rudeness, and here and now, in the name of Princess Kaina Hill, vows that such a thing will not happen again. Raffaello, surprised, asks if she needs anything since she's acting like this. She replies that she's hoping to gain something valuable, his trust. The gentleman is surprised and asks if she really needs his trust. Kaina says she told him about the marriage candidates in advance to prove that she was a schemer worthy of trust. The main character believes that everything must have a benefit, be it emotional or material, in order to be able to convince someone. The girl thinks that Raffaello is now especially lacking the emotional benefit that can be called faith. The man says, in other words, that she will need him in the future. He adds that until then, she will test whether she can trust him. She notes his insight, worthy of Sir Kaidri. Raffaello ponders what she's pursuing, and whether she's doing it for her family or for Rezef. He believes that if it's for the latter, there's no point. He thinks that despite the influence of his family, she would not cooperate with them for the sake of the throne for Rezef. Kaidri considers their relationship too strained for such an alliance, and understands that her goal is not connected with the throne. Raffaello wonders why she is trying so hard, but oddly enough, he is confident that she will keep her word. The gentleman says he believes her oath. The lady assures him that his help will not harm him and suggests they return. The girl says she doesn't want to start scandalous rumors, but suddenly the man supports her when she stumbles and asks if everything is okay. The princess pushes him away and says everything is fine. She explains that she slipped because of her high heels and thanks him. At this moment, the main character thinks that he hates touching and tries to keep contact to a minimum. The girl understands that their relationship is just beginning to improve, and now is not the time to lose points, because without Raffaello, she will not find a future husband. Kaina suggests they go back. He looks at his hand, confused, as the princess just pushed him away. Raffaello says the ground is slippery and asks to lend a hand. The lady refuses, saying she can handle it herself. The man realizes she's truly keeping her distance. He's unaware of his aversion to touching and wonders if the old Kaina was just a mask. He decides that perhaps he is simply imagining things too much, since Kaina has become too reasonable and frighteningly perceptive. The guy understands that this is impossible and suggests walking slowly. At this time, the girl thinks about the damned high heels and decides that they need to be thrown away. Raffaello apologizes for his insolence, takes her hands, and promises to let her go as soon as they pass the dangerous section, asking her to be patient. The main character understands that this is more unpleasant for him and asks him to accompany her to the entrance. The maids are surprised to see them together. The princess thinks she should keep her distance, and the maids don't understand the awkwardness between them. The maid asks what happened, recalling that he had accompanied her before. She says the princess has refused him an audience 5 times, and the rumors of their fading feelings seem to be true. The main character thinks that it's good that the rumors turned out well, and decides to send him away, even though she understands that it's mean. The princess says the walk is over. She would like to offer him some tea, but she dares not detain him and says he can go. The man thinks that she lets him go so easily, although he has freed up the whole day, and says that he would not mind staying. Kaina replies that this is unnecessary and promises to invite him when he has time to try the tea. Raffaello agrees and says that next time he will bring sweets. Hearing this, Jeremy, Raffaello's adjutant, thinks that the changes in the princess seem suspicious to his master as well. The girl looks at Raffaello, knowing about his mysophobia, and wonders why he torments himself, assuming that the gloves will save the situation. The princess says he doesn't need to be so strict about etiquette. He replies that it's an honor, kisses her hand, and thinks she doesn't disgust him. Raffaello realizes that things were different before, and wonders if her unclear motives intrigue him. He realizes how fragile and small she really is, despite her majestic posture, and how much strength is hidden in this body. The princess asks if everything is all right. He replies that everything is fine and says he will await her invitation. She smiles and wishes him a safe journey. At this moment, the prince appears and says that he was looking for his sister all over the palace, and she ended up with Sir Raffaello. Raffaello greets him, but the prince orders him to drop the ceremony, explaining that he came for tea with his sister and did not expect him here. The princess believes Rezef came deliberately, having learned of Raffaello's presence. He is concerned about the lack of military force on his side. Henrik has several knightly houses, and this forces Rezef to hurry, because even together they cannot compare to the Duchy of Kidre. The Duchy of Sidrius is a military clan that guards the borders of the empire and raises the strongest warriors. Rezif commands the Marquisate of Evans, the granary of the empire, whose strength lies in its economy, not its military. Together with the Kidre, they could make up for each other's weaknesses, so it is not surprising that this family is so desirable for Rezif. The protagonist understands she can't allow this to happen, as she needs Sir Kydri to escape. She says they've already said goodbye. Hearing this, the prince regretfully says that it would be nice to spend time together and invites the Sir to come next time. Lydia cries out and asks her father if the prince has forgiven her. He replies that Sir Zeno Evans was able to settle the matter. The girl asks when the Evans family will propose her to the prince as a wife. The man thinks this won't happen, since their house already has its own heir. The gentleman believes it's enough for them to remain Prince Rezef's hands and feet, continuing to pressure him. He tells his daughter that to become the bride, she needed to make a good impression, and she made a serious mistake. Lydia screams and says she burned her hand then too. She claims the girl deliberately stepped in front of the falling pie and didn't tell him it was hot, thus starting a rivalry between the maids. The daughter insists that everything was prearranged, and she was merely waiting for the right moment. She is certain the princess wanted to soften His Highness Rezef's heart. Her father sharply reprimands her, reminding her that they are in the imperial palace. Lydia responds by declaring that after the pie incident, everyone has been avoiding her and looking down on her. The girl says the princess has been acting strange lately, not leaving the palace or hosting balls, despite the budget being overflowing. Moreover, His Highness has suddenly started caring for her, something he hadn't done before. Hearing this, the man wonders why, with such means, the princess does not give receptions, especially before the coming-of-age ceremony. The gentleman reflects on the increasingly frequent reports of changes in the princess. He is alarmed by her sudden closeness to the prince and the thought that she might be eyeing the regent's position. Father says that Kaina does look suspicious and tells Lydia to keep a close eye on her surroundings. Mr. Benjamin orders the other maids to carefully check all gifts and be on guard. The protagonist looks at the reports and sees that the treasury is overflowing. She believes she lived too frugally and deliberately avoided hosting parties so that the maids would have more free time and forget their duties. Kaina realizes the moment is right for another incident. She recalls Bella's words about the maids seeming to be searching for something. The princess tells the maid to make tea and bring baked cookies. Bella counters by saying that eating only snacks is unhealthy. The maid reports that the maids have sent cookies. The lady wonders what they're doing to send them. The maid explains that they said it was nothing serious. The princess remarks that she's been seeing this girl a lot lately. Bella, seeing the cookies, screams and thinks they've completely lost their minds. She realizes the lady was given nut cookies. Her Highness is allergic to nuts, and everyone knows it. Bella can't understand how they dared to pass it on without even checking. Kaina asks what happened. Bella apologizes and says there's a problem with the sweets and she'll make some more. Her Highness replies that this cannot be, and these will do. The maid, shocked, reminds them that they contain nuts. The princess confirms that they are nut cookies, and one bite is enough to put her life at risk. She says these are exactly the snacks she needs and plans to eat them now. Bella realizes her mistress is serious. Meanwhile, Kaina thinks Bella can handle it. Walking down the corridor, the maid remembers she was supposed to take snacks to Rezef. She doesn't know that the princess was served nuts, and she might faint alone. Annie, whom she had recently seen, would report this to the physician, the emperor, and Rezef. Bella, whom the princess held so dear, would know nothing. The blonde touches the girl's hand and asks how the maids could allow this to happen and what they were doing anyway. The doctor says she only ate a small amount and will recover soon, but it's clearly a nut allergy. He warns that things could have ended much worse. The prince says the maids didn't check the food and admits the cookies were an accident. He asks how to explain the maids' absence from his sister's presence. Rezef demands an answer and reminds them that there was already a similar case in their family. The gentleman talks about the nut-allergic member of the imperial family being put into eternal sleep and screams, recalling the princess's imperial mother being put into eternal sleep. The maid apologizes and says that Lydia Benjamin called the princess suspicious and ordered that all gifts be checked. The maid adds that Lydia threatened severe punishment for disobedience. Meanwhile, Lydia reflects on how they'd recently been fawning over her, praising the Benjamin family. She resolves not to become a scapegoat. Lydia screams, calling everything slander, and asks the prince not to listen to the non-entities, assuring him that this is a conspiracy against his authority. Hearing this, the gentleman realizes he's been played this whole time. He asks if she's mocking him, pretending to be a spy. The girl objects and assures that she belongs to the Benjamin family and is ready to do anything for him. The prince reminds her to know her place and says that pathetic creatures are always trying to harm their family. The butler announces the emperor's arrival. The prince falls to his knees and greets him. His Majesty orders that all the maids be flogged, expelled from the palace, and banned from entering the capital. The emperor clarifies that this does not concern Bella, as Kaina values her. He orders her to be rewarded with jewels and temporarily entrusts her with the management of the princess's palace. Bella thanks His Majesty and promises not to let him down. The emperor orders a recruitment drive for new maids. He thinks about the misfortunes that have befallen his daughter: poisoning, a burn, and now unconsciousness due to an allergy. He believes she's bearing it all with fortitude, even though the previous poisoning involved Rezef. The emperor tells his son that everyone is keeping quiet about this, and so he has decided to act. Until he repents, he will remain imprisoned in the prince's palace. Rezef obeys the order. Father orders everyone out so the princess can rest, and tells Bella he trusts her. The maid informs Kaina that everyone has left. The mistress thanks her and says she did a great job. The princess tells Bella that she knows about the support of her house Rezef, but following her is not a betrayal, but helping him. Kaina announces her intention to make Rezef emperor. She explains that he won't care about the fate of her family, and asks if Bella wants the title. The main character says Bella ran away from her family, who wanted to marry her off to a profitable marriage. Rumors circulated that her future husband had his sights set on her younger sisters as well. The maid wonders how she knows this. The mistress replies that after receiving the title, Bella will be able to take the younger ones and promises to arrange everything. Kaina claims that the man who called himself her father saw his daughters as nothing more than property. The lady thinks she's only 25 and too young for such responsibility, but she understands that Bella came to the palace herself to protect her sisters. The main character realizes that they are similar and best able to understand each other. The princess says she will protect Bella as she has already suffered enough. The maid vows to serve her until she falls into eternal sleep. Kaina says she's got a reliable maid, and it's time to move on to the next task. She orders her most modest dress brought. The maid whispers to her friend that the princess hadn't moved for a long time, but upon learning of her punishment, she rushed over. She's unrecognizable in that dress. She notices how fragile the lady is and is afraid that she might lose consciousness again. When the emperor is informed of this, he is surprised at how long she has been sitting like that. The assistant replies 3 hours, and the physician warns her condition is worsening. A servant reports that nobles, supporters of Rezef, are requesting an audience. The emperor agrees to receive them. The man begs for mercy for the prince. The emperor asks him by what right he speaks of pity, knowing what Kaina has been through. The prince's assistant says that the blame lies with Rezef, but he thinks the punishment is too harsh. The man asks for a reconsideration of the decision. The emperor understands that influential aristocrats are pressuring him, and he cannot ignore them completely. He reflects that the power of the crown depends on these families, but does not understand how they dare to call the verdict unjust. The emperor thinks that they have completely lost their fear. The butler apologizes for the interruption and reports that the princess has lost consciousness and that a doctor is with her. Hearing this, the prince's assistant realizes this is his chance. He believes that the incident has cost Rezef his entire staff. The prince's authority weakened. The emperor's wrath fell upon him, and Kaina lost nothing. The man becomes increasingly convinced that everyone has fallen into Kaina's trap and doubts that she actually ate the nuts. The aide realizes the princess gave them this chance. He asks the emperor to take care of her and reconsider the sentence. The man decides not to miss the moment and again asks to think again. The emperor says he is disgusted by this spectacle and announces that he is reducing the sentence to 10 days. Bella asks if everything is all right with the mistress. She replies that she's almost all right, just that her legs are cramped from sitting for so long, and fainting was a good thing for everyone. The princess thanks Bella, believing that thanks to her she passed the emperor's test. Bella doubts that he has changed his mind, since life imprisonment is tantamount to disinheritance. The lady says that if father wanted to expel Rezef, he would have done it immediately, and not kept him under lock and key. The princess believes that the 10 days were planned from the beginning, and everything else is a test of her decisions. She says she'll know the result very soon. At that moment, the butler enters with the emperor's orders. The butler announces that due to Rezef's temporary imprisonment, control over the ladies-in-waiting is being transferred to First Princess Kaina Hill. After this, he takes his leave, saying that he has done his job. Bella is delighted and says that this is incredible and means recognition of Her Highness as a leader. The main character thinks that for the first time she has received a real privilege, the key of the Maids of Honor, passed from empress to empress. She understands that her mother also took a long time to get to this point. Now the key is in the hands of the princess, who was previously only used, but for Kaina Hill this is still not enough. The princess says that if this is so pleasing, then the next plan will be even more astonishing. Bella asks what it will be. The lady replies that there is a lot to do, but first of all it is necessary to send out a notice and officially appoint Olivia Grace as a maid at the princess's palace. The Grace family did not accept Rezef's request, not wanting to appear to be his supporters, but an invitation from the emperor was a different matter. Kaina believes that this will not look like support for Rezef, and they will not be able to refuse the emperor. Olivia will voluntarily come to the palace, at least for the sake of raising the family's status. The main character of this world is the strongest card and the most unfortunate character without protection. The princess understands that she must win Olivia over to her side in order to protect her from Rezef and Heinrich. Bella agrees and says Olivia can be trusted with this position. She asks what else is planned for the next 10 days. Kaina replies that she will do what she does best, making the best of even dangerous situations. She says that she will sow the seeds of discord, and in time, everyone will realize how deeply mistaken they were. The prince's assistant greets her. The lady says she's worried about her brother and asks if she can see him. The guard refuses, sheepishly adding that this is an order from the emperor. The knight thinks how hard it was to say that. The prince's assistant considers the guards brainless. Zeno says the meeting will only worsen the prince's situation. The lady asks if everything is all right with her brother, admitting that she thinks about him constantly. The aide assures him that the prince is fine, but the order cannot be disobeyed. Deep down, he knows he will never allow their meeting. Zeno believes this isn't a coincidence, and that she planned it all to control the ladies in waiting. He's irritated by her visit under the guise of concern. The assistant says that the prince cannot accept her and suggests that she return. The lady replies that she understands and admits that she put everyone in an awkward position. Kaena turns to Sir Evans and asks him to tell her about Rezef on the way since he is accompanying her. The guards exchange glances and think that he will not refuse the princess because even Zeno should have common sense. Zenon understands that with Kaena's reputation, a refusal would look strange, especially for Rezef, who is close to him, so he agrees. Sir Evans says he is honored and escorts her to the princess's palace. Kaena asks her to be honest and whether she should be concerned about Rezef's health. He assures her that he is more than healthy. The assistant thinks to himself that the prince is even too cheerful and that during these 10 days, they will be moved from room to room more than once. Kaena remarks that it must be difficult for him and admits that if she had been more careful, the maids would not have had to be fired. Zeno thanks her for her concern and says that now it's not easy for her because she needs to recruit new maids. Inwardly, he muses that she clearly underestimates his knowledge, and he is curious as to who she will fill the empty places of Rezef's people. Kaena says that she just wanted to consult and is going to call people from reliable families, after which she mentions Zeno's younger sister, Lady Julia Evans. Zenon is surprised, because she just got rid of Rezef's people, but immediately calls someone from his family and considers this an unexpectedly profitable move. He understands that if Julia becomes Kaena's maid, she will see the prince often, and therefore he is increasingly interested in what exactly the princess has planned. Kaena casually asks if Sir Evans himself is free, mentioning that the eldest son of the House of Evans still does not have a bride. She reasons that either no lady was suitable for him, or for him marriage is just a matter of calculation, not feelings. Zeno replies that he is not one to talk about love, and is not going to force himself to do something that is indifferent to him. Then, Kaena asks if the role of the emperor's daughter's husband is valuable enough to interest him. The man is amazed and realizes that she is actually asking him to seek her hand. He remembers the former foolish princess, but admits that the current Kaena is completely different, cautious and far-sighted. At the same time, Kaena thinks that in a relationship with him, she will no longer have to humiliate herself in front of Rezef. Zeno decides to accept this game and says that such a role is truly worth fighting for, being confident that he will emerge victorious. Kaena realizes that he is blinded by pride and decides to use this, planning to start with Julia, Olivia, and Bella, just 3 maids. She believes that a minimal number of people will help to instill in them a sense of special privilege more quickly. Kaena assigns roles, deciding that maintaining order and discipline would be suitable for Bella due to her attentiveness. She entrusts the reception of guests and the management of balls to Olivia, whose insight will increase her influence. Responsibilities related to food and medicine, as well as control over clothing and property, remain separate. Kaena says she has candidates for these positions, Julia Evans and Susan LaPaul. Bella is surprised, explaining that Julia is from an extremely influential family and it is doubtful that she would cope with the role of a maid. She adds that Susan has a difficult character and has been nicknamed a poisonous snake with a blade in its mouth. Kaena insists that she needs Susan, recalling that in the original story, it was she who became close to Olivia. Bella agrees and accepts the assignment to deliver the letter as instructed by the princess. The maid asks if it is for Olivia, but Kaena says the letter is addressed to someone else, her dear nanny, Clarence Elavan. In the letter, Kaena asks how she has lived all these years, since 10 years have already passed since their separation. She writes how every year she remembers her childhood, their kitchen pranks, and ruined pies. Kaena remembers how she ruined dresses, and the nanny was only glad that she was not hurt, believing that the late empress was protecting her. She writes that she never felt shackles, only care, and is sure that her love of baking is due to Madame Elavan's lessons. Kaena announces that she will soon come of age, her exile is lifted, but there is no need to return to the palace. She writes that she will respect any choice and would be happy to sometimes cook sweets together. Having finished the letter, Kaena thinks that she hasn't missed anyone so much in a long time and hopes that her sincerity will be understood. She says that there is one last thing left for today, and Bella asks where they will be ordered to go. Kaena replies that it is to a place that will become an important landmark for future plans, the Imperial Library. Bella is surprised, because now every minute is important, and meetings with aristocrats are still not enough. Kaena insists that there is no need to rush, and that the period during which the maids of honor are appointed makes every step she takes noticeable. Bella wonders if the visit to the library is another trick. Kaena says she only looks through books about travel and holiday destinations to relieve the attention on herself. She believes that the more she is underestimated, the easier it is to act. Bella admires the lady, and Kaena thinks that this is a convenient cover for searching for a place for future life outside the palace. Kaena understands that while the emperor is alive, the issue of hereditary land must be raised, especially in the east of the empire. But the east is occupied by the Evans, and the west could create problems with Raffaello, so he is not suitable either. She thinks about a quiet place, far from the capital and influential houses, where it would be easy to manage and live. Kaena dreams of a small estate with a garden, the sea, or a lake nearby, and wants to escape there as soon as possible. She understands that first she needs to get out of the palace, which is more like a prison. In the library, the men look at the princess in surprise, convinced that the rumors about her beauty are true. Kaena remarks that the plan worked even better than expected and suggests that Bella return with a couple of books. She says that today, the sky is clear and the weather is fine, and the palace seems peaceful. Kaena thinks that if Madame Elevan returned, she might stay here longer. She begins to wonder if there has ever been such a calm time in her life. Suddenly, it seems to her that someone is whispering about the inevitability of fate, from which there is no escape. Suddenly, a man appears, saying he was going crazy with longing for her, and Kaena recognizes Henberton Killian. She recalls hiding the marks of the violence under tight clothing and writing letters to Rizef, begging for rescue. She remembers hiding in the castle and, in desperation, turning to Raffaello for help. Killian holds the letter and taunts her, assuring her that Raffaello will not come to save her. He screams, accusing her of trying to escape. Then she fell into the hands of the mad Killian and met her descent into eternal sleep. Kaena snaps back to reality and calms herself down, realizing that this hasn't happened yet. She pretends to be calm and asks if they have danced at a ball before. Killian agrees and speaks of fate, as if their connection is predetermined. Kaena thinks it's better to play along than to provoke him, and refers to the formalities of etiquette. He remembers the blue outfit and admits that he ordered a similar one to preserve this memory. Killian talks about the gloves and her embarrassment, asking if he's special to her. Kaena feels scared, but at that moment, Raffaello hugs her and asks if everything is okay. He notices her trembling and coldly admonishes Killian for his manners. Herberton smiles, assuring her that he was only supporting her, and turns to Kaena for confirmation. She decides not to escalate the situation, realizing that getting rid of him now will only make things worse. Kaena confirms his words, citing dizziness, and Killian leaves, promising to meet again. She thanks Raffaello for his help, noticing that he is still holding her. Kaena asks what brings him here, and he replies that he was at the academy nearby and was hoping to see her. Raffaello says that she refused him an audience more than 10 times, although many troubles were happening in the palace. Kaena thinks she wanted to meet later, but events followed one after another. She says that a lot has happened to her and invites you to ask questions. Raffaello replies that there are many questions, but today her peace is more important. He notices her pallor and trembling hands and wants to be at least a small consolation for her. Raffaello asks to be invited next time and thinks that her warmth is not at all unpleasant to him. Kaena asks if he is expecting an invitation from her, and he reminds her of her previous refusals. He says he will wait, mentions tea, and asks to brew it together next time. Kaena smiles and promises to prepare for the tea party properly. Raffaello looks at his hands and realizes that the touch did not cause disgust. This confuses him even more, because everything is connected with the princess. He orders his assistant to take his hand, but immediately pulls it away, feeling disgust. Raffaello recalls Kaena's behavior and understands that it was not about touching, because she accepted Rezef's accompaniment calmly. He thinks that she clung to him for a long time and seemed to do it out of concern, and admits that she knows about his illness. He then dismisses the thought, believing that even the childhood knights do not know about it. Raffaello asks Jeremy about Henberton Killian and learns that he is the eldest son of the Marquisite. The assistant adds that the engagement was broken off 2 months ago, shortly after the ball with Kaena. He says there were rumors that Killian was in love with the princess, but he doesn't like that family. Jeremy calls them utter scoundrels, pointing out the Viscount's debauchery. Raffaello realizes that Kaena's fear has another reason and decides to find out more about the heir. The image of a frightened girl with a pale face does not leave his head. Kaena thinks she's done with Killian, but she doesn't know how to get rid of him. The Killian family is influential and connected to military supplies, so touching them is dangerous, especially if she is counting on Raffaello. Kaena doesn't want Raffaello to hate her, and notices that she feels calm around him for the first time in a long time. The protagonist decides that this feeling was just a quiet peace from joy and gratitude for his cooperation, and understands that she no longer wants to bother Raffaello with anything else. The princess thinks that her true desire is to simply leave the imperial palace and live the rest of her life in a quiet village. The emperor's exile, punishment, replacement of maids, and even ladies-in-waiting occur one after another without the prince's participation. He clearly senses that his place is shrinking and gradually passing to his sister. Rezef believes she handed over control of the ladies-in-waiting to him, citing fatigue, but continued to pull the strings unnoticed. He convinces himself that Kaena is incapable of such a thing and decides to simply endure, because in his mind, she still belongs to him. The young master thinks that the feeling of fullness, like sunlight, was real, and it was enough for her to just be near him like this. The prince reflects on the scent of Saina mingling with Zeno's presence. on the power slipping from his hands like sand, and recalls her meeting with Raffaello in the library, suspecting that his sister had been lulling him into a false sense of security from the very beginning. Rezef admits that if his sister marries Raffaello, she will be able to distance herself from him, and he may still accept an alliance with him, but he considers depriving him of influence unacceptable. The young gentleman asks if she is planning to run away from him, and Kaina assures him that this is impossible, and she does not understand what he heard. The prince asks her directly if she really needs marriage, and if that is why she saw Raffaello today. The lady explains that the meeting was a simple coincidence, but he almost breaks into a shout, accusing her that it was all pre-planned, including the expulsion of his people. At this moment, the main character remembers the letters with pleas for salvation, to which he responded with silence, but decides to leave the past behind. The young master coldly declares that he does not like it when his authority is encroached upon. The girl thinks that they are both wounded and powerless, and if they are not monsters deserving of heavenly punishment but just brother and sister with difficult characters, then everything can still be fixed. The prince says he can put her into eternal sleep if he wishes, and reminds her that he is her emperor, Rezef. The girl thinks they can still be saved and calmly replies that he can do it. Hearing this, the young gentleman trembled, and she continued to say that she knew how fragile her life was, and that she was prepared for it. Rezef pushes her away sharply, asks if she has gone crazy, and demands an explanation. Kaina notices that he is finally ready to talk, and says that he has lost control over the ladies in waiting, and that the gap in power needs to be filled with something new, since there was no real benefit from the previous control. The princess claims that he was only blinded by the illusion of power, not allowed to have real power, and asks if he himself realizes this. The young gentleman asks whether this is his chance, and whether it is worth seizing, and the lady agrees, adding that there is no rush. The girl reminds him that she promised to make him emperor, and is ready to help if he wants to gain new power. The brother looks at her in surprise, and Kaina explains that after the end of the exile, he should immediately ask forgiveness from the emperor, who will certainly give him new strength. She adds that if the relationship improves, he should turn to Catherine Rinderberg, who makes Henrik look more like a rough bandit. It was Catherine, the emperor's beloved woman, who had won the right to inherit, and Kaina proposes to recognize her as the adopted daughter of the county of Hamel, a family on her mother's side. The lady emphasizes that first and foremost, Catherine must be protected from Henrik and other factions. She recalls how, many years ago, during his last hunt, the emperor met Catherine Rinderberg. His Majesty was blinded by her beauty, but her father died in a trap set by Archduke Henry, which was passed off as an accident. Left in Henrik's power, Catherine found herself in an extremely unstable position, risking losing everything at any moment. The main character understands that the emperor's only desire is to keep his beloved safe before his departure, and give her protection in the county of Hamel. Rezef is perplexed as to how the late empress's family can accept her father's young favorite. Kaina assures them that they will agree, because it is better than losing the black market and upsetting Rezef's mental balance. The girl realizes that with the help of Catherine, the emperor's power can be limited in one more way, but the prince reminds her of her son as a possible contender. His Highness asks if she understands how dangerous this sounds. The lady replies that Catherine does not strive for power, and dreams only of a quiet life with her son, tired of intrigue and struggle. The princess adds that the boy is only 13 years old, his family is in decline, and he poses no threat. She also says that Henrik will not allow any new contenders to emerge, and they both know this very well. Kaina calls it boundless love and asks if all power still remains in their hands. The girl says that they need to use all the cards they have because protecting Catherine will bring the emperor's recognition and a valuable hostage. Hearing this, the prince is amazed at how Kaina thought of everything without even having worthy informants. He thinks that only a born intriguer could have shown such cunning and calculation. The girl takes her brother by the hand and asks if they can make peace now, and he sees in her the former affectionate Kaina. Rezef realizes that the anger has faded too quickly and understands that his sister's insight could be dangerous. The young lady, standing at the gate, thinks that this is the palace in which she will now live. She understands that she has given up everything else, but the imperial decree is indisputable, and therefore she arrived earlier to scout everything. The lady introduces herself to Lady Olivia and says that she is a maid of honor to Princess Bella. Hearing Bella's name, Olivia thinks that since she wasn't banished, it means she really is special. The girl asks to take care of her and understands that this maid of honor is Kaina's man. Bella explains that the second floor is reserved for the ladies in waiting. There are only 4 of them, and their responsibility is enormous. She adds that Olivia will be in charge of all matters of receptions, schedules, and rules. Olivia thinks that for a girl of low birth, this is an incredible position, almost the pinnacle. Bella announces that they have arrived and that Her Highness is waiting inside, assuring them that Olivia already knows everything. Entering the room, the girl senses a subtle, calming aroma and compares it to a picture painted with light. The beauty seems unreal, as if in a dream, and upon seeing the lady, she understands who is the source of this radiance. Olivia pulls herself together, bows and greets the princess. The lady notes that she arrived earlier, and the girl explains that due to the absence of an assistant, she decided to come immediately. The princess praises the answer, says that the choice was wise, and warmly welcomes Lady Olivia Grace. The girl thanks him for his trust and promises to serve him with all diligence. The main character notes Olivia's wheat-colored hair, green eyes, and harmonious figure. She sees in her intelligence, calmness, and a true heroine of this world. Kaina says that such a person cannot be a mistake and promises not to do anything he will regret again. She adds that she understands Olivia's fear and asks her to forget past grievances. Olivia considers it an honor to be here and realizes that the princess is not at all what she used to be. The lady is happy about this and clarifies that Olivia is already 20 years old. The princess admits that she did not know about this, and Olivia explains the humble position of the family. The girl says that she did not conduct the ceremony, and the lady offers to arrange it together. Olivia is confused, but Kaina says that a princess has a duty to take care of her man. The lady emphasizes that the servant's honor is her honor and asks not to refuse. Olivia understands that true strength lies not in coercion, but in natural greatness. She thanks Princess Kaina, who is worthy of her title. The maid announces Sir Kaidri's arrival, and the princess notes that he has arrived early. The main character understands that now is not the time for Olivia to meet with Kaidri in person. She decides that there will still be opportunities and tells him to tell her that he will be out soon. The princess greets Raffaello and asks if she has kept him waiting. He touches her hand, assuring her that the wait was not long. The Duke reminds her of her promise to answer questions. The lady agrees and says that they have enough time. She suggests starting with tea and brewing it herself. The girl clarifies that it is tea with milk and suggests trying it. Raffaello feels the warmth of her hands and understands that the taste is completely different, although the recipe is the same. He thinks about it, and Kaina asks if everything is okay. The man replies that the taste is excellent, although inexplicably different. He says that the tea she makes has a special taste, but she has her doubts. The princess jokingly notes the ambiguity and suggests moving on to questions. She talks about his marriage, and he confirms that he has found out the candidate's situation. The Duke mentions Lady Rita's madness and asks how Kaina knew everything. He talks about the rumors, her fainting, and the transfer of power to her. Now he's less concerned about the wedding and asks what she really wants. Kaina apologizes and says that she can't tell him everything until he becomes her ally. She warns him that the path is dangerous, but promises to help him at any cost. The princess asks for help and extends her hand, offering partnership. She notes in advance that the deal is extremely profitable for him. Raffaello sees in her determination a lack of regrets and a sense of a distant future. He realizes how fragile and strong she is at the same time as he holds her close. Raffaello swears to serve her and, kneeling, kisses her hand. The lady thanks him for his trust and the choice he made. The Duke says she has already proven her sincerity and faith. The main character thinks that she was always wrong before, but now she belongs only to herself. The princess declares that she will no longer regret and will not reveal all her cards. She explains that complete openness is dangerous for both of them. Kaina asks if he can trust her even in doubt. Kidri replies that he trusts her without explanation and is confident that she will not harm herself. The man assures that he has no doubt about it, but still wants to believe her, because she spoke of regret. Raffaello touched his mistress's hand and immediately realized how unbearable it was. The alien warmth and touch felt like insects crawling across his skin, evoking a nauseating revulsion that made his insides clench and his blood run cold. The Duke reflects that even when he endured pain or took medication, he felt no relief, and he doesn't understand why, when he's with her, this feeling fades like melting snow. The gentleman says he won't regret his choice. She cries out and asks if he trusts her that much, adding that it's a great honor for her. The main character thinks that she herself didn't notice how she told too much. Kaina thinks that since the conversation turned to his engagement, it's worth asking if he's checked the other houses. The lady adds that he'll be meeting Olivia soon, since she arrived today, and the timing seemed opportune, so they didn't invite her ahead of time. The lady says she'll definitely arrange a meeting for them next time. She's sure this maid of honor is a wise and pleasant lady and will definitely be to his liking. Raffaello replies that he was interested to hear this, and then asks Her Highness why she mentions Lady Olivia so often to him. He wonders if this means she's the only one she recommends to him as a wife. The princess confirms this, saying that Olivia is strong and beautiful, without a single flaw, and therefore they will make a wonderful couple. Hearing this, the young gentleman does not understand her behavior, and asks why at every meeting. The conversation again and again turns to Lady Olivia. The girl apologizes if she offended him, and the man apologizes in return, remembering an urgent matter, asks for permission to take his leave, and quickly leaves. Raffaello thinks that it didn't hurt him, it just spoiled his mood, and he doesn't understand where these strange feelings came from. The maid asks for forgiveness and, turning to Her Highness, reports that Sir Raffaello has sent a letter again. The lady asks how many times this has happened. Bella suggests that perhaps Sir Kaidre has feelings for her, to which the lady, surprised, replies that this is absurd. The maid believes that he has not stopped sending letters since their last meeting, and thinks that high society would be shocked to learn of Sir Kaidre's behavior. The princess says that she herself does not understand what came over him, remembering how he suddenly ran away then, and that this was the first time she saw him so uncontrollable. The main character thinks he's ashamed, which is why he keeps sending apology letters. She didn't expect him to be so uncomfortable talking about Olivia, as she only wanted them to get along, as in the original canon. Kane considers whether she should come between them, and suddenly realizes that she is thinking about something completely different. The young lady feels her heart soften from just a few words from Bella, and she understands that she needs to pull herself together because there is still a lot of work ahead. At this time, the maid thinks that Her Highness is pretending that everything is fine, but lately, she looks tired and decides that she needs to ask the central kitchen to prepare something nutritious. The maid asks Bella if they need to go to the central kitchen in person. She replies that of course, since they are responsible for monitoring Her Highness's diet as her closest servants. Bella explains that the princess once fainted due to a nut allergy, so food needs to be checked especially carefully. Furthermore, she's sensitive to strong fishy odors, so seafood should be served with caution. The maid of honor says that if there's a problem with the food, they'll both be to blame. The servant thinks they need to be even more careful now. Bella realizes that there are people who need to be watched to make sure they are doing everything right. There's the head chef of the central kitchen, who constantly sends her away, and Madame Hiller, the chief lady-in-waiting, who is always pestering her with haughty remarks about the disorder in the princess's palace. The maid particularly dislikes the way the chef prevents strangers from entering. She thinks he wouldn't behave like that, in good conscience, and resolves to be on the lookout for any suspicious details. At this time, the chief maid of honor turns to the lady, saying that she was just walking around the palace, and asks where she is going. Bella explains that she's going to the central kitchen to check on food for Her Highness. The woman mockingly asks what exactly she's looking for there, as she knows nothing about cooking. Mrs. Hiller cries out, declaring that the kitchen is a sacred place, the most strictly guarded in the palace. She adds that complaints are constantly being made about Bella's movements from there, accusing her of exceeding her authority. The maid thinks that Hiller is making a mountain out of a molehill, but she understands that she is the chief maid of honor of the palace, and she cannot lose this argument and disgrace Her Highness. Bella asks how exactly she's exceeding her authority and firmly states that checking the food is her direct responsibility. She adds that the maids haven't done this before, even though they should have, and is perplexed how her actions can be considered unjustified. The maid thinks that the chief maid's constant nagging looks suspicious and believes that she is trying to restrict the princess because of the supervision entrusted to her. The girl understands that she had foreseen this, because they belonged to Rezef's faction, but she did not expect that they would start acting so quickly. Bella states that Her Highness has recently suffered severely from a nut allergy, so it's her responsibility to inspect the food. She adds that the head chef must know about it, and asks if that's the case. Madame Hiller replies that the cookies were prepared by mistake by the maids, and this is not the kitchen's problem, but the servants of the princess's palace. The maid of honor sarcastically remarks that she wonders how outstanding the maids of honor must be, since the princess chose only 4, and adds that in fact they are the most ordinary girls. Bella wonders how Her Highness manages to remain calm when such a trifle has angered her. She understands that unless she becomes wiser and more agile, their contempt will not disappear. The maid reflects that this is the price of life in the imperial palace. She will survive only if she is useful, otherwise she will simply be discarded. The princess is her only salvation, and she must become her support. Bella thinks that the chef and Madame Hiller are guarding the central kitchen too closely, and assumes that there is definitely something amiss there that needs to be checked. The maid understands that she cannot cope alone and needs an assistant. Smart, reasonable, easily adaptable, and cool-headed. Bella explains to the maid what they'll do next and quietly whispers the plan in her ear. The surprised maid asks if her mistress is sure everything will be all right. The maid of honor replies that she is sure, because Lady Olivia will distract the chef, and there is probably something hidden in the central kitchen warehouse. Bella finds it strange that even the most expensive ingredients are guarded daily, and it's even more absurd not to let the maids in there. The chef immediately starts raising his voice and chasing them away, which looks suspicious from any angle. The maid thinks it's a clear sign of embezzlement. Meanwhile, the cook looks at his records and thinks he's stashed too little this month, but decides it's better than getting caught. He knows Hiller is unreliable, despite the bribes, and thinks he should order more next time. The new maid approaches the cook, says that she needs to go to the princess's palace, but she is lost, apologizes for disturbing her, and asks to show her the way. Seeing the girl, the man thinks she's not rummaging around the kitchen like the previous one. He was afraid she'd find the hidden budget book, but this maid looks innocent and completely different. The chef examines the maid, noting her pleasant face, figure, and noble manner. She strikes him as reminiscent of a noble woman, and he thinks she might be a man to pressure. The man says that the corridors here are confusing, asks if this is true, asks where she needs to go and what her name is. Meanwhile, Bella quietly makes her way to the kitchen, thinking she's succeeded. She's grateful to Lady Olivia for that. The cook asks the girl if her work is hard, and adds that if she can please him, he will be able to feed her and give her tasty drinks. Olivia declines, saying she doesn't need it. The man asks if she'd rather live like a noblewoman rather than do menial labor, and suggests that becoming the wife of the imperial palace's head chef will make her famous. The cook adds that she is pretty, and therefore he will take good care of her. At that moment, Bella calls out to Lady Olivia and asks what she's doing. The man flinches, and upon seeing Bella, he recognizes her as the lady-in-waiting from the princess's palace, whom he had previously driven away. He grows indignant, pokes his finger at her forehead, and says she already walks into the kitchen like it's her own home, and now she's poking around in the warehouse. He declares that their business is none of the princess's business. Bella understands that the situation is escalating, but she cannot turn a blind eye to what is happening, because of her, Lady Olivia finds herself in a dangerous situation. The maid realizes it's too late to search the warehouse and ponders the best course of action. She remembers that Her Highness has placed her trust in her, and she must fulfill that trust and be her support. The man shouts that they apparently came together on purpose to break into the warehouse and indignantly asks who they think they are and what they are being taught in the princess's palace. The assistant turns to the boss and asks him to calm down. Meanwhile, the man thinks that if he lets them get away with this now, they might come back again. The cook decides these girls must have found out something, which is why they're acting so brazenly. He thinks they need to be intimidated, otherwise the truth about the embezzled food money will come out, and that will be the end for him. The man raises his hand to strike the girls, but the princess grabs his wrist and says she was right to suspect something was wrong. She's glad she rushed here, knowing her girls could have been hurt. The cook doesn't understand where the princess came from, and the maid asks Her Highness how she found out about what was happening. Kaina asks Bella to remind her what foods she can't stand. The maid is at a loss, but then says it's nuts, especially peanuts and seafood with a strong fishy odor. The lady says that, as expected, Bella knows this very well, but what is strange is that today they brought her fish dishes. A few hours ago, in the princess's palace, Kaina noticed new maids and said that she did not remember them among her servants. The maids reply that there is a shortage of maids in the palace, so they were assigned here, and the chief maid of honor ordered them to carefully monitor that the princess does not need anything. Hearing this, the protagonist thinks she dares to boss her around and appoint servants at her own discretion. She knows this woman is loyal only to Rezef and is already restricting her. The girl realizes that she is tired of this outrageous attention and looks full of contempt and doubts about her abilities. The maids add that fresh fish was delivered to the central castle today, so they cooked it. The princess says that's enough and tells them to leave. The maids claim they've been ordered to keep an eye on the lady. The mistress notices amusement in their faces and asks if they have any hearing problems. The maid reports that Lady Olivia and Lady Bella are currently in the central kitchen. Her Highness thinks they're moving faster than she expected and decides it's time to go, ordering them to escort her there. The princess says she's long wondered who was deliberately trying to lull her into eternal sleep, sometimes serving fish, sometimes adding nuts. She personally ordered Bella to supervise the kitchen, but she was always sent away. Kaina approaches the chef and asks if he sent her fish she can't eat today. He assures her that this is impossible, and it was all a misunderstanding. The man explains that he was only concerned for the safety of the maids, afraid they might burn themselves or cut themselves. He says he didn't want any accidents, and that was his only reason. The cook adds that the maids who served the food report to Madame Hiller, and that passing the dishes is not his responsibility. The princess asks if he knew about this. He replies no, because even a day isn't enough for him, even when he's only busy with kitchen work. The lady says that the place with the strictest control in the imperial palace is the central kitchen. The chef claims that he has worked as the head chef of the imperial palace his entire life and is completely confident in his cuisine. Kaina replies that if he is so sure, the matter becomes even more interesting and asks Bella to call Madame Hiller. The maid quietly whispers to the princess that she feels he's hiding something, but there's no proof. Kaina reassures her, saying everything is fine and suggests she simply trust her. Bella is surprised to hear that Her Highness already knows about what's going on in the kitchen. She realizes she couldn't report anything without proof and notices that the princess doesn't look like she's investigating at all. Kaina asks if she can take a look around a bit, since this kitchen is considered the standard for others. The cook agrees and says she can watch as much as she likes. He secretly thinks she's recently gained power over the ladies-in-waiting and is trying to show off her temper, that he thinks she won't understand anyway. The worker explains that the ingredients for today's dinner are stored here and, as befits a central kitchen, they are all fresh and selected. Meanwhile, the protagonist thinks he's already gotten rid of the evidence, and that's not enough. She realizes she needs to catch him red-handed or obtain physical evidence, but there's no rush. It's just the beginning. The lady says that she didn't notice anything special, the products are fresh, and now she can trust him with a clear conscience about today's dinner. The chef assures her that he will not make such mistakes again, will approach cooking with full responsibility, and will let her appreciate his skills. At this time, the man thinks that he almost gave himself away out of fear, and is glad that she did not notice how huge sums for expensive products were recorded in the budget book. In fact, the cook knows that the boxes contain food only on top, while the lower ones are filled with stones, and with the help of Madame Hiller, he appropriates the money for himself. The fair-haired man believes that members of the imperial family don't care about the kitchen. Food is thrown out at the slightest sign of spoilage, and the main thing is to do everything carefully. The chef, surprised, asks why he's being told about this scheme. He replies that they share common interests and that he, as the palace's head chef, is forced to constantly work and deal with trivial matters. The gentleman asks if he'd like to receive so much money that he'll no longer envy the nobles. In exchange, he'll only need to tell him little details about what Princess Kana did and where she went. The man offers to share what she eats and can't eat, dismissing it as a trifle. The cook, surprised, asks what he plans to do with this information and what Archduke Heinrich is trying to achieve. The master replies that the more people he has in the palace, the better, because information is a source of strength and power. The cook asks whether it is necessary to cooperate with Madame Hiller, considering this woman too greedy. Henry asks how many maids he has in the palace, 1 or 2. He says that by teaming up with the chief lady-in-waiting, he can avoid prying eyes, especially since she's from Rezef's faction, making her an ideal partner and helping him avoid attention. At this time, the cook thinks that he did the right thing by removing the stones in advance, since previously, the imperial family had no interest in this insignificant kitchen. The assistant informs the chef that the food supplier has arrived and asks whether he should be escorted out. Hearing this, the man suspects the new shipment still contains stones and realizes the princess might discover this. He indignantly shouts at how a pathetic merchant can be allowed to meet Her Highness and orders him to be escorted immediately. The lady says everything is fine since he's come a long way and asks how he can just be sent away. She suggests calling him, wanting to thank him personally for his hard work. Meanwhile, the supplier thinks the warehouse is too noisy. Usually, only the chef hangs around here, and he can't understand why there's so much crowding around today. The man decides that he needs to finish his business quickly and move on to the next place. The princess asks if he's responsible for the kitchen supplies. The maid immediately reprimands him, reminding him of his respect for Her Highness. The amazed young man introduces himself as a lowly servant, greets the princess, and kneels down. Kaguya asks him to stand up and says she's previously been too indifferent to those who provide the palace with food. She wants to reward him for his efforts and asks to see the food. The supplier agrees and immediately remembers that the boxes contain stones. He thinks about the chef's words, calling the princess stupid, and wonders if she knows more than she lets on. The lady asks to see the receipt for the goods. The supplier is surprised and replies that the chef doesn't have any receipts at all. The cook whispers to him to feign forgetfulness and disappear. The supplier says he was in a hurry and forgot the receipt, adding that they've been doing business with the palace for a long time and such things happen sometimes. The cook explains to the princess that the merchant is not very educated and always works this way. He says that because of their trusting relationship, they get by with simplified paperwork. The man thinks the princess doesn't understand paperwork and doesn't even need to forge anything. He's certain the evidence will disappear before any investigation can be carried out. In his opinion, a simplified receipt is completely legal. The main thing is that the figures match in the budget book. The princess smiles, and everyone looks at her in surprise. She says it's strange to exchange a check for trust, considering how poorly she's held in such low regard. The protagonist realizes they're simply playing along, thinking they can do whatever they want. Their behavior clearly demonstrates their doubts about her ability to detect lies. The young lady decides to live differently. She's used to suppressing her anger and remaining cool-headed, but now she clearly sees how she differs from the Kina of old. The lady says she seems to have been too generous. She wonders if it's because she was considered a villain from birth, and asks if they know how difficult it is to manage an imperial household. Hiller states that even the empress had a difficult time getting used to running the court, and it was no fun for an inexperienced princess. Hearing this, the maid whispers to her friend that the princess hired only 4 inexperienced maids and wonders if she really doesn't understand anything at all. The maid of honor says that with the return of His Highness, everything will be as before. Bella informs Miss Hiller that Her Highness is looking for her. The woman thinks the princess needs counseling, gloomily noting that she is too stubborn and not at all like Rezef. The maid replies that the mistress is already quite perceptive and is now temporarily managing the ladies-in-waiting, bearing full responsibility for the palace's economy. Madame Hiller thinks this lady merely grabbed one key, but she's acting like she knows what. She's certain that with Rezef's return, the key will be taken away from her immediately. The woman is alarmed by the call to the kitchen. She suspects the chef might have been caught and decides that if that happens, she'll have to remove him just to avoid dragging her down with him. Seeing the knights, Hiller screams and asks what is going on and why the kitchen is in such a mess. The princess says they're currently inspecting the carriage. The chef angrily declares that he shouldn't be treated like this without reason, since Rezef personally hired him. The lady asks why he thinks there are no reasons. The knights report that all the boxes have been lowered, and she orders them to be turned over. The guards, shocked, report that there's nothing but rocks inside. The cook shouts that it's a mistake and claims he was only following orders. The princess slaps him in the face and says that he not only encroached on the treasury, but also showed disrespect to a member of the imperial family. Kaina orders that all the perpetrators be immediately arrested and sent to prison. Miss Hiller is stunned by what's happening. The mistress orders everyone to be interrogated without exception and declares that she will search every corner of the castle. The maid of honor thinks that the princess is putting on a show after gaining temporary power and decides to take advantage of the moment to teach her a lesson. Hiller asks how an investigation can be started without notice, and whether this does not seem to be a sign of doubt in the vassals' loyalty. The protagonist agrees, acknowledging that Hiller's words make sense and noting that she pointed out something she hadn't thought of herself. Hiller says that everyone in the palace is a loyal vassal of the family and thanks the princess for her understanding. She admits to herself that the uproar was unexpected, but perhaps beneficial. The long tail will inevitably be caught, and everyone should know their limits. Hiller knows she can't let it be revealed that she covered for the chef, or her honor will be tarnished. The princess says that Hiller's own insight also raises questions. She asks, surprised, what they're talking about. Kayana notices that the salary at the palace is apparently higher than expected, or perhaps there's another reason. She notes Hiller's unusual taste and inquires about the origin of her jewelry. Hiller smiles, praises the princess's keen eye, and says that the jewelry is a gift confirmed by a power of attorney. The princess replies that this is ridiculous and points out that the brooch belongs to the Riam family, traitors to the empire who were executed after attempting to escape. The necklace is associated with the House of Madron, which fell after the rebellion, and the ruby ring is associated with the Paulin family, which commissioned an assassin for a member of the imperial family. The lady asks where the chief maid of honor got the jewels of so many traitors and declares that treason is rampant throughout the castle. She orders the traitor's arrest. Hearing this, the woman falls to her knees and swears allegiance to the imperial palace. Kayana says that she knows about her work and therefore intends to conduct a thorough investigation to dispel all suspicions. The main character orders the confiscation of property and a search of Hiller's parental home, not missing a single detail, as if it were an imperial order. The maid falls to her knees and admits that she foolishly put Lady Olivia in danger. Olivia says she acted voluntarily and deserves punishment too. The princess acknowledges their wisdom, but says they acted carelessly today. She believes she should have been warned, as direct confrontations with fools are dangerous. The lady says she doesn't want anything bad to happen to them. She reminds them that they were right. After all, they were criminals, and hugging them calls them smart. Kayana asks if Bella managed to talk to the emperor and what he said about this incident. The maid replies that the emperor ordered the princess to be helped in everything, already knew about what happened, and ordered her to return immediately. The main character thinks that she only protected the family's property by revealing the leakage of funds, and therefore, the emperor supported her. She believes that now there is no need to fear the claims of influential nobles, and it is worth thinking about the reward and Rezef's reaction. The power of attorney for Hiller's jewelry turns out to be a black market counterfeit. The protagonist believes the jewelry was given to Hiller deliberately, to frame her and get her fired. She understands that Archduke Heinrich, who controls the underground market, is behind this. The chief lady-in-waiting and the chef are just part of his network. Kayana wonders how many more such spies are in the palace and realizes that Henry is a dangerous adversary. At this time, the maid admires the luxury of the Kidre house, considering it an estate where it seems like night never falls. When the gentleman opens the door, she announces that she has arrived with an urgent report from the princess's palace. Raffaello thinks that it was not in vain that he left a spy in Sina's palace, because lately, emergency messages have been coming in more and more often. The Duke asks for an explanation. The maid tells of the commotion in the kitchen and the princess's actions. The gentleman puts the picture together, the embezzlement of the chef, the search of the chief maid of honor, and the support of the emperor. He does not understand where the princess gets such information from and is surprised that talk about his viewing has ceased. The Duke asks if there's anything else suspicious. The maid says the princess often reads travel guides and searches for a summer vacation. Hearing this, the man recalls their meeting in the library, where she was also looking for a guidebook. The gentleman inquires about the nanny she mentioned earlier. The maid replies that there is no answer yet. Raphael thinks that if Baroness Elavan arrives at the palace, she could be appointed head maid, and it would be worthwhile to infiltrate a person there. The maid says the prince came to Kana's chambers last night and suggests there's a secret passage. Arguing could be heard from the room. The gentleman understands how unpleasant this episode was and thinks that the prince came to vent his anger. No rumors surfaced, and silence reigned in the prince's palace. The Duke was confident that Kayana had brought him to his senses, but he realized the questions were mounting. Raffaello thinks that one step of hers will plunge the world into chaos, notices the maid's confusion, and invites her to speak frankly. The maid reports that she overheard the lady sincerely desiring his union with Lady Grace. The gentleman asks his assistant if he can meet the princess freely. Baston doesn't understand why this question is addressed to him. Zeno asks to reconsider the decision and asks why they brought Katrin Rinderberg, considering her dangerous. The gentleman replies that he is merely going to promote her as an adopted daughter to the county of Hamel. The assistant says that by doing this, he is only creating competitors for himself, since authority is an unstable thing. The prince notes that Zeno speaks as if his authority will certainly pass to Catherine's son. Zeno shouts that if Catherine becomes empress, her son will become the rightful heir, and this is too dangerous given the dependence on the aristocrats. Hearing this, His Majesty throws a book at him, declaring that Ringberg will ascend to the throne faster, and orders him to leave. Rezef orders Jamil to distribute portraits of Princess Kayana throughout the empire, especially in ports and on the roads to the border. The young master thinks that all that remains is the wedding, and he never let his sister run away. The prince understands that with the portraits, escape will be impossible and only marriage remains. Jamil reports that the princess is punishing all the ladies-in-waiting and many servants, including the chef and the chief lady-in-waiting. The young master realizes that his sister is undermining his authority, and if the position becomes vacant, Elevan will be appointed there. Razaf considers Elevan an irritating woman who always defended Kaina and prevented them from getting closer. He thinks that he cannot allow the return of the one he got rid of with such difficulty because she will interfere again. The prince orders Jamil to ensure that Florence Elevan cannot come to the capital. The servant promises to arrange everything. The young lady, approaching the palace, says there's a commotion there. The mistress agrees, suspecting trouble. The lady thinks she looks too stern, but considers herself a real beauty. Susan Lepal, third maid of honor to the princess. Julia Evans, Zeno's younger sister, and fourth lady-in-waiting, considers herself the first beauty in the eastern part of the empire. Julia recalls how delighted she was at the appointment, dreaming of escaping the rough men of the East for the refined capital. She imagined balls, tea parties, fashionable dresses, and elegant aristocrats, confident that she would live like a capital city noblewoman. Bella introduces herself as a maid of honor at the princess's palace and says that they will now work together, offering to follow her. Julia knows that Bella is the only recognized maid of honor, but for some reason her cold gaze and lack of smile frighten her. The girl doesn't understand whether such people will surround her every day. The maid of honor explains whose room is whose, mentioning that the next one belongs to Julia and the other one to Lady Olivia. Julia is surprised to learn that Olivia is already here and thinks that she is trying to pass herself off as someone important. She recalls rumors about Olivia's house, considering her a poor capital aristocrat, although there was talk of a connection with Kaidri. Julia has heard that Sir Kidre is extremely handsome and she is curious to see him. Bella says that they need to greet Her Highness and asks not to keep her waiting, as the princess has a lot to do. Julia lies down on the bed and is surprised that they were greeted so coldly, despite the small number of maids of honor. The maid assures her that the room is bright and pleasant. The young lady agrees, noting that the house is luxurious, but she doesn't like the furnishings her mother has chosen. Julia was sure she had no equal in beauty in the East, but in the capital she expected to see nothing but dazzling women. The reality turned out to be quite different. The lady wondered whether she lived up to the image of a capable and beautiful girl, as a maid of honor at the imperial palace should be. The maid explained that refined manners, elegant clothing, skills, and education were essential, and all requirements were mandatory. Julia enthusiastically declared that it suited her and sounded simply wonderful. At this time, the maid thought that she had flattered with all her might, but a whole hour had already passed, and they had a lot of work to do. Susan, seeing the lady, asked if she had finally come out and sarcastically remarked that she had taken so long to get ready, as if she were going to a ball. At that moment, a maid came out of the room, covered the lady's mouth with her hand, apologized, and asked if they had kept her waiting. The lady-in-waiting, looking at them, thought they were two complete opposites and suddenly found herself missing Lady Olivia. For some reason, it seemed like things weren't going to be easy from here on out. Bella reported that the entire palace was currently occupied, there were no tutors, and the princess had more work to do than ever. Julia asked in surprise what had happened, and the lady-in-waiting explained that Her Highness was busy completely reorganizing the palace. She added that in time, everything would stabilize and training would begin. Hearing this, the young lady was astonished, for she had been told that the ladies-in-waiting did almost nothing and simply accompanied the princess. Now it became clear that this was not the case at all. Julia decided that she would definitely find out this during a personal meeting with the princess. Bella informed Her Highness that they were coming in. The princess greeted them warmly and said she was pleased to meet them. Upon seeing the lady, the girl thought she looked like a simple village girl. After that, the ladies respectfully greeted the princess. The lady said that the Marquisate of Evans had many concerns at the moment and thanked them for coming to the palace despite everything. Julia admitted she was happy to be there, as she had long dreamed of this. The princess inquired about Susan's father's health and invited them both to the coming-of-age ceremony. The lady promised to write to him, and the girl at that moment thought that Julia's boundless carelessness was a problem, but Susan's cold indifference was no better. Lady Olivia was clearly different from the others, as she was the only maid of honor from the capital and had been accustomed to palace etiquette since childhood. The princess asked Bella to explain the duties of the maids of honor. The maid explained that the maids of honor were important assistants to the imperial family. She added that they were directly subordinate to the princess and would become the chief maids of her palace. The mistress noted that Bella had explained everything well and suggested they rest today and get used to the palace. She also said that later the junior maid would explain each of their responsibilities. Leaving the princess's room, Julia did not understand what was happening because she dreamed of a luxurious life, receptions, and beautiful clothes. She decided she couldn't even dream of becoming the capital's most beautiful woman anymore. Julia didn't understand why she had to work and thought it was the job of junior maids. Annie greeted the lady, introduced herself as a junior maid, and admitted that she had heard rumors, but Julia was even more beautiful in person. Hearing this, Julia thought that the girl had a real diamond eye and politely responded with a greeting. The maid asked if she had already been told about her duties and said that Julia was responsible for the princess's food, snacks, and medicines. The lady was surprised and said that she knew nothing about cooking or medicine and asked how she could cope with it and what the others were doing. Annie explained that Bella was in charge of administration and teaching, and Susan was in charge of dresses, jewelry, and furniture. Olivia, on the other hand, is in charge of welcoming guests and organizing receptions. Hearing this, the lady realized this was a direct route to the center of capital society, and she wanted it. Julia decided that for such a position, you needed looks like hers, and Grace didn't have any influence, so she could ask her brother to arrange everything. The lady asked if it was possible to swap duties, but the maid replied that Her Highness personally handled the distribution. Annie assured her that she would learn everything in time and asked her not to worry. Julia ignored her words and decided that Susan's duties were much better, and that she had deliberately been given the most difficult and dirty work. The maid thought that the lady did not even realize how important the responsibility for the food of a member of the imperial family was. The lady realized deep down that she didn't need the truth, but only wanted a nice position to brag about. Annie didn't understand why Her Highness had chosen such a person as her maid of honor. Bella reminded Julia that she was responsible for food and medicine, and thought that she had been given a huge responsibility because of the Evans family. Julia asked if she had come to the palace to cook and decided that it was humiliating for such a beautiful maid of honor. She dreamed of a fateful meeting, ideal love, and Sir Raffaello Quidri. The maid said that His Highness was somewhere around here and that he was fabulously handsome. The lady, however, declared that she was not interested in men younger than herself. Bella noticed that the difference was only a year and that he was a prince and asked if it mattered. At that moment, His Highness approached them and said that he had finally met Lady Julia. The girl looked at him and admitted that he was indeed handsome, but still declared that she did not want anyone younger than herself. With the arrival of the ladies-in-waiting, time sped forward, and the incident in the kitchen reminded us of the honest workers who were driven out to preserve corruption. Kaguya immediately appointed them to positions of responsibility, gave them rights and remuneration, and the entire palace was filled with praise for her. It was the 5th day of Rezef's house arrest, and he remained suspiciously silent while Kaguya took complete control of the courtyard. Bella asked Her Highness not to be distracted from her work and offered her tea. She admitted that she was happy to serve someone who acknowledged her. The maid reported a letter from the Imperial Academy, and the mistress was surprised who needed to write to her from there. The letter stated that the Duchy of Kidre wanted to build a new wing of the Academy in honor of her coming of age. After reading the details and discussion of the project, the main character thought it was madness and just a pretext for a meeting. At this time, Olivia received a letter from her father about the termination of the marriage agreement with the Kidre family. After reading it, the girl smiled and said that she had not initially sought marriage and that her current life was more interesting to her. Bella asked Olivia for a short conversation and said that Her Highness wanted to convey something. Olivia thought that Bella looked tired, but her gaze was still alive, because a person who has found his calling is beautiful. The girl wondered if she too could find someone who would reveal her, and decided that Princess Kaina was giving her such a chance. The maid said that everything was sudden, but a guest would arrive soon, so they decided to conduct the training urgently. Olivia was surprised and did not understand why she was being taught so abruptly if she was not ready for it. It seemed to her that the princess wanted her to definitely meet the guest, and she became curious who it was. Bella announced that Sir Raffaello Kidre was going to visit the academy, and Olivia asked in surprise if she should meet him. The lady thought she had barely freed herself from the burden of marriage when she received a new assignment with alarming consequences. Olivia said she would obey the order, but first she wanted to talk to the princess. Coming to the lady, she asked if Bella had told her everything. The girl apologized for asking for an audience and admitted that she was afraid of making a mistake when receiving Sir Kydri. The princess assured him that she was smart enough, and Olivia added that her marriage agreement with Kydri had been cancelled. The main character thought that Olivia's directness might look like rivalry, but it was impossible to avoid the conversation. Kaina said that since things had turned out this way, everything needed to be clarified, and the termination of the contract was inevitable. She admitted that she had once been blinded by jealousy and behaved cruelly. The lady said that she should have apologized long ago and asked for forgiveness. Olivia was surprised, took her hand and asked her to stop, assuring her that she was okay. Kaina remembered how in her past life she had envied Olivia for her support of the House of Kidre. Then, succumbing to Rezef's tricks, she secretly ordered Olivia to be put into eternal sleep. But she survived thanks to the magician and did not blame her, treating her with understanding. The main character realized that Olivia didn't remember this, perhaps because she was the heroine of the story. The princess said that she would find herself an even better husband and suggested closing the topic of Kydri. Olivia was surprised, asked if she would marry someone else, and smiled. The lady asked if she was ready to receive the guest, and the girl promised to do everything possible. Olivia thought that she was meeting this man for the first time and knew very little about him. He is the heir to the house with which the contract was terminated today, and, according to the princess, he is a lover of black tea. The gentleman thought that she could not have known about this, which meant that Kaina had warned her. Raffaello noted her wheat-colored hair and warm green eyes, familiar from engravings. The Duke decided that this meeting was also the princess's idea, remembering her words about her desire to bring them closer together. He thought that Kana wanted to appear indifferent, but it was impossible to understand her thoughts. Olivia reported that Her Highness would be delayed due to palace management and interrogation of criminals. She mentioned the construction of the Academy building and how quickly time flies. The gentleman answered dryly and remained silent, and the girl decided that he understood gentlemanliness too literally. Olivia thought that the rumors about him were clearly exaggerated, because the answers were monosyllabic. She decided that he was uncomfortable around her and suggested calling another maid. Raffaello said that this was not so, and the girl noted his arrogance, although it was unpleasant. At that moment, Her Highness arrived, apologized for being late, and praised Olivia for her excellent work. Olivia thanked him and thought that even the professors had never praised her like that. Raffaello greeted the princess and touched her hand, and Olivia screamed, noticing that she was without gloves. The man said everything was fine and kissed her hand, surprising his assistant. Jeremy noted how nice it was to look at the beautiful couple. The princess remembered that this was not the first time this had happened, and she wondered if she had offended him somehow. Olivia said she would wait outside, but the princess objected, and the man said goodbye to Lady Grace. Olivia looked at them and felt a strange atmosphere. Kaina thought that they were connected by fate, but everything was not as simple as she thought. She admitted that she was surprised by his decision to build the building in her name. A few weeks ago, an assistant suggested delivering the gift in advance to meet her. Raffaello said he didn't know what to choose and hoped she liked the gift. The princess thought that he was the first man who had given her fame, not jewels, and that this would never have happened before. The main character understands that he seems to acknowledge how well she is doing, and says that the gift is unexpected, but she is grateful, although a little confused. Raffaello asks whether it is worthwhile to build another theater named after Her Highness, or a shopping area would be better. The lady objects that there are already enough buildings, but he suggests a shrine, for example, a relic of an ancient kingdom. The main character is perplexed by what is wrong with him, but says that everything is fine, and she is grateful to him without even saying anything. The Duke replies that he's glad to hear it. The princess thinks that even though he's the most beautiful man in history, it's still unfair to be so handsome. Kaina notices that Raffaello is indeed unusually attractive, and suddenly her heart skips a beat. The Duke announces that the new Academy building is entirely at her disposal. The lady suggests changing the subject and asks why he did this. Raffaello comes closer and says he wanted to meet her specifically. Baston coughs, and the gentleman asks if he's okay. The assistant explains that he simply choked and thinks that confessions require gradual preparation. The princess reminds him that he wanted to ask her something. The gentleman thinks Kaina hasn't even considered developing their relationship and decides to accept it for now. Raffaello informs her that the prenuptial agreement is off and wants to know her plans for the future. The princess says that her goal is simple and she cannot do without him, and asks him to make her Sir Raffaello her husband. The man initially thinks she means the child, but realizes she wouldn't say anything indecent and didn't ask him to marry anyone else. The Duke asks if she's really asking for his husband. The lady replies that he's a non-existent man, a fake, with real money and power, whom she'll marry. Raffaello is surprised and asks if she has any feelings for him. The main character realizes that the entire empire knows about it. Raffaello was the princess's first unrequited love. The lady thinks that she only asked to make a husband and does not understand why he asks about feelings. The Duke finds the question difficult. The girl understands she won't be able to answer intelligently since she herself has constantly spoken of her affection. Kaina admits that the question puzzled her and repeats that she has gotten rid of her feelings for him, swears that she will no longer seek to win his trust, and asks him to believe her. The man thinks her vow means she no longer loves him, and he realizes that this is what he wanted in the first place, for her to stop pestering him. Raffaello understands that before, every touch of hers caused him rejection, but now he treats the princess completely differently. He reflects on how he can be close to the current Kaina and feels only peace, even when he touches her hand. The man feels tenderness from small gestures and a sweet aroma, and says that he believes her without vows, because he wants to be near as long as possible. The princess asks if this is true, and thinks her request was too bold. He replies that asking for a husband is simply unusual. The Duke asks why she's marrying a fictitious man. She explains that such a man wouldn't poison her, and that it's the only way to safely leave the capital. The main character understands that she is not going to get married for real. Her husband might be crazy, and if not, fate will finish him off with the Rezef. The lady ponders that she will become a tool for plunging her husbands into eternal sleep, since the Rezef plan to set her and Henrik up. Obediently passing from hand to hand, the princess wants to break the thread of fate of the puppet that she was made into. Kaina explains that his help is needed, and she will only receive it when he inherits the family. Raffaello reassures that there is nothing to worry about then. In the novel, the divorce proceedings in the Duchy of Sidrea are finalized, and the former duke returns home. Rather modestly, he paid for ruining his family for his own immoral pleasures. The main character understands that these pleasures were not written about in the novel, but she heard that the betrayal began when Raffaello was a child. For some reason, the girl is tormented by her conscience, because she is taking advantage of Raffaello's family tragedy. The Duke is surprised by her look. She explains that she simply thought bright colors suited him, and she means it, without flattery. The princess says that she has business today, asks for forgiveness, and says that they need to choose a date for visiting the academy. Raffaello offers to walk her home, but she says it's not necessary. A man asks if she dislikes him. She replies that she doesn't, and he asks why she's avoiding him. The main character notices his closeness, thinks that he might be uncomfortable, and says that she simply does not want to cause discomfort. The Duke insists that he feels discomfort because she is keeping away, takes her hand, and says that he will take her there. The princess thinks it's strange, but since he's okay with it, she takes off her cape and says she's hot. The land of the Duchy of Kidre is located on the border with other countries, so barbarian invasions were frequent. The barbarians were advancing from the west, and when Raffaello grew up, he defeated them and brought order to the border. Baston thinks that when he was still a knight, the young gentleman was an impudent youth. The assistant notes that the usually bold voice was soft, but now it inspired confidence, and if not for the owner, he would have died. The guy notices that the owner doesn't even pay attention to the wound. The barbarians feared his name, for Raffaello was ruthless, doing his duty without showing mercy. The sword never wavered in his hands. From childhood, he demonstrated exceptional abilities and coped with any task. The young gentleman was withdrawn, his face emotionless, but spring came even to him when he looked at the princess. Raffaello tells Baston that his breath is foul. Baston apologizes and explains that he has rhinitis. The gentleman looks at the jewel and thinks that it resembles the princess's eyes. Jeremy brings in a report on Henbert Killian, and the gentleman praises the work. The man notices that the owner has been so engrossed in something for a long time and recalls that since childhood he was indifferent to everything. The Duchy of Sidrea was once treacherous and cruel. The Duchess prepared Raffaello for the role of heir with rigorous training. The Duke became depressed, drank heavily, and became rowdy. And little Raffaello was barely 10. Jeremy asks what he has in his hands, and he replies that it is a gift from his father's pocket money for his birthday. The boy comes to his father with a gift. The father shouts about black hair and scarlet eyes, calling it the blood of the vile Kidre. The father tells the boy to disappear, looking at him with contempt and insults, as if he were a leper. Anger and violence are like an enemy in front of a child. The father throws a gift, and the red liquid flows, and the boy humbly accepts it. When he leaves, the boy tells Jeremy that his father hates the Kidre family to death. Raffaello developed an incurable disease. His condition worsened. He became nauseous. The doctors shrug their shoulders. The Duchess is angry at her son's rejection and gets rid of the doctors and servants, drowning the family in red liquid. When her anger was about to reach its peak, the young master said that he was fine and apologized for disturbing her. The suddenly quiet Raffaello's condition is questionable, but the people of the duchy, balancing on the brink, breathe a sigh of relief. Jeremy realizes that the gentleman still sometimes turns pale and apologizes, saying that the report turned out to be worse than expected. The assistant reports that over the course of 5 years, Hemberton surrounded himself with scoundrels and created a closed gentleman's club. Jeremy says the drug trade in the capital is huge, but there is no connection or supplier. Raffaello realizes that they are being grown somewhere in the country, and that human trafficking, illegal gambling houses, and murders are taking place despite the fact that Viscount Killian is a vassal of his family. The owner understands that they breed horses for the front, and access to them is difficult. Cavalrymen form the core of the Kidre troops. The assistant reports that Henberton is obsessed with the princess and is trying to get close to the contenders for the throne in order to marry her. Jeremy explains that the Killian family supplies frontline horses, and this is something that the prince and Henry are interested in. Hearing this, the gentleman asks if it would not be better to get rid of the garbage as soon as possible, and states that they will destroy it. The assistant is surprised at how he wants to destroy the aristocrat, and the gentleman says that it is purely theoretical. Jeremy is puzzled as to how to secretly kill the heir of the vassals, and Raffaello explains that this is just a theory. The owner suggests continuing to watch Henberton, and Jeremy thinks he's being particularly unbearable today. Baston understands that the gentleman is dispassionate by nature, but now he seems different and thinks that it is all because of the princess. It's spring, the grass and trees are green, the fruits are ripe, and the rose of the empire is blooming especially brightly. Kaina asks if the invitation to the coming-of-age ceremony is ready. The princess's birthday is approaching. The maid shows an invitation decorated by the court artist. The princess rejoices at the roses and says everything is fine. Bella explains that the birthday marks the beginning of the social season. The maid of honor insists that the menu, the food, the distribution of servants, and the orchestra numbers must be perfect. Kaina thanks him because Bella is the one who organized everything. She believes a successful ball will intensify the competition for her hand. The main character thinks that while everyone else goes crazy in this race, she will leave with an imaginary husband. The princess doesn't know how to write to Sir Raffaello to be grateful or cold. The girl thinks that the distance will be noticeable, but remembers that he asked her not to avoid him. The lady thinks that it is impossible to write to him as before. Kiana writes that she appreciates the building's location within the academy, as she has never studied there and is not accustomed to interacting with students. The girl doubts she can handle the task, but hopes that the building will be useful to the Empire's future specialists. The princess asks if he would mind her assessment and waits for an answer. Having finished the letter, the main character thinks that it is short, concise, and businesslike. Her Majesty asks if Olivia will deliver the letter. The lady agrees and specifies where to deliver it. The lady says the letter is intended for Sir Raffaello and dismisses her. The girl promises to complete the task quickly. The princess says a yellow brooch will go with the green hat. Olivia thanks her. Olivia arrives at the estate and realizes how majestic it is, the main estate of the Kidre family. The lady is surprised that such a gloomy man lives in such a bright estate. The Duke opens the door and greets Lady Olivia. The girl thanks her for the warm welcome. The lady thinks that she should start with a greeting and then move on to small talk. He will like it. Olivia reports that the letter was written by Her Highness and asks that it be delivered personally. Raffaello remembers that before, love letters from Sena were unpleasant, but now he is glad. The girl says that the princess will set up a meeting on a convenient date, and the gentleman replies that it can be in 2 days. The assistant objects, reminding him of his visit to the cathedral on that day regarding his parents' divorce. The Duke agrees and offers to have lunch together, promising to book a restaurant. The maid of honor delivers the letter. The gentleman asks if she can wait while he writes a reply. Baston thinks it's true. The gentleman writes to the princess that he was at the estate, is glad to receive her letter, and reports that construction has already begun. Raffaello considers it an honor to help her and looks forward to seeing her in 2 days. The princess thinks the letter is laconic, without ambiguity, restrained and in the master style. The girl believes that the problem is that the attitude towards her is changing, and this confuses her. Sena recalls that the former her always asked if Raffaello had read the letters. The Duke replied that he had. The main character understands that he answered, and this means that they have become a little closer. The princess remembers that her brother's house arrest ends tomorrow, and that things need to be sorted out. The girl thinks that she should get Raffaello appointed as Lord of the West as a reward from the Emperor for fixing the palace. This power is granted to the Duke, but until Raffaello is married, the vassals will not recognize him as his heir. Sena believes that the appointment from the Emperor will force the vassals to recognize Raffaello. Zeno thinks the woman is pretending, but actively gets rid of the Rezef's people by calling Catherine, despite her son's lack of authority. If the Duchy of Kidre ends up in the zone of influence, it will bring a lot of problems. A servant informs Mr. Evans that Henburton Killian has arrived. Zenon recalls the princess's strange behavior upon meeting him. Evans realizes that he can get rid of 2 annoying enemies at once. The gentleman proposes to share in the horse breeding business, considering it profitable. Zeno says that the unification of the imperial court and the viscountcy of Killian will be a support for the Prince Rezef. Killian apologizes and says he's not interested in the imperial palace at all. He doesn't need the title of the princess's husband. That's the concern of the imperial court, and they'll sort it out themselves. The man declares that he only wants Princess Kana. He admits to being a collector and collecting the most beautiful things in the world, and it's literally his addiction. Killian explains that these are precious stones, sculptures, paintings, jewelry, and he is sure that nothing in life can compare to the beauty of Princess Kana. The gentleman says that he wanted to own her from the first meeting, because nothing in his collection can compare to her beauty. He remarks that this is a fortunate coincidence. Tomorrow the princess is going to the Imperial Academy, and he has heard that she will meet Sir Raffaello alone there. The man thinks that this Raffaello is a real bastard who disturbed them in the library by daring to hug her. Killian decides that he should have been killed on the spot then. Zeno asks Sir Henburton if he knows about the temple. The man replies that only a few know about it. The temple contains an annex, access to which is only possible with a large monetary donation. He adds that if a criminal hides there, no one will be able to enter without permission from the temple, since this wing is the only one in the empire. Zeno notes that this is an inviolable territory, where even the imperial family cannot enter at will.